officially call the meeting to order at 7:09 p.m. Roll call, please.
Nelson on the, no? Okay.
He won't be joining us.
Okay, then Grace,
Yes?
Blackman,
Yes.
Paredes,
Yes.
Huckabee, Ward.
Here, and the quorum is present.
I would like to start the meeting tonight by recognizing and passing one of our staff members, Jennifer Morgan. Jennifer was the administrative assistant in our technology department. She passed away last Friday evening. Could you please take a moment of silence to remember Jennifer and her many contributions to our school district? Thank you.
First up on our agenda are audience comments. We don't have any. Someone just like me. Okay, we have no audience comments, so we will move on to the first item on the next item on the agenda, is the equity and inclusion update.
No true update. At our last meeting, we started working our way through the elementary and middle school handbooks, identifying really a number of eye-opening issues in their documents that are 80 pages long. They tend to collect any number of exciting paragraphs. So as a team, we started going through them, identifying sections that were just eye-opening. And then we really just took a broad pass at the language, and then as we're coming back together over the next couple of meetings, we will continue to rewrite and edit and revise and frankly delete a lot of things so we can bring a sample back to the board early spring, work with our building staff members as well, have a handbook that is clear, it's accurate, students know what's expected, parents know where to find the right information, and ultimately it provides some value. Right now, it's an 80-page document at either the elementary or the middle school level. You can't really find any information quickly, and we need to make some changes. So that's what we're focused on, is equity and inclusion.
I will add that I actually thought that it was a great exercise. Carolyn, I'm assuming you probably would agree to actually go through and dissect the handbook the way that we did, but looking specifically at the language with an eye towards equity and inclusion and diversity. I mean, there are sections of the handbook that you would have never thought touched on those areas until people actually start looking at it with those specific lenses. I would say, though, if there are things that it makes sense to change and implement sooner rather than later, we should absolutely do that instead of waiting until a whole school year to be able to implement some of these things. And some of them just, they don't positively reflect, the district and the messaging that we're trying to create. So. Finance committee?
No update, there's not been a meeting, but we can swap that out for the community engagement committee if that's okay. Logo submissions are due by Tuesday. We have our new logo search on right now, and each building has 3x5 note cards in the offices. Students, parents, community members are encouraged to turn in submissions for the new District 161 logo. We have our next community engagement committee meeting on Wednesday, October 3rd. At that point, we'll try to narrow it down to either three logos or three logos that have elements that really capture the spirit of District 161. And we'll work with a digital artist, graphic designer to mock up a few of those, bring them back to the board on October 29th, take action at the first meeting in November, and be off to the races with our logo.
And if I could just add that, one of the real focus of the process is to really gather input from the community to find out, how does the community of 161, how does it want to be represented? What are really the things that we rally around? And, whether it's an idea that is embedded in the logo, and which might be something incredibly simple, yet warm and friendly, and you know, what are the things we respond to moving forward. And, you know, it's kind of like, and to me, this is how I see it. It really is kind of like almost like a mini, miniature version of our 5-year goals, in that we're just looking to, you know, have an idea of, you know, where we want to go forward with. We had conversations with Flossmoor about a year ago, where when they really consolidated their logo, they and the visual story that they're telling the district, they had committed to be able to still tell the story of our children. You know, at the end of the day, the kids have to win. This place has to be about our children. And so, you know, we also looked at some other districts where, you know, it was this one driving message that was going to bring everyone together. Moving forward, it was relevant to the community. It was relevant to the mission and our goals and our vision, and that's really, you know, what we're trying to do here. So I encourage everybody to have an idea. You know, look, you don't have to be Picasso. You also don't have to be Picasso would be the best. You also don't have to be Michelangelo. You just write your idea down and submit it. And we're going to look at a really great idea. We stick figures in there and make a very good idea that someone can put words down they'd like us to consider.
Did that go out, the request, to the community at large, or just District 161?
I believe it was posted also on the Facebook page.
So not Chronicle Patrick or Flossmoor, the Village of Flossmoor.
We can talk with the Chronicle about that. We have some time. We certainly did on the village page.
I mean, just because we have amazing talent in all of Flossmoor. So for those families, those residents who no longer have children in the district may not know, but they have got a lot of graphic artists and stuff.
Even my brother-in-law, who I mentioned this to, graduated from HF in 84, was really excited about this. He thought, oh, it's terrific, and he wanted to, you know, reach out to all of his friends. So, you know, sometimes even one side conversation can really spark a whole nexus of other people who are suddenly excited as they want to, you know, participate. Because this is not meant to be, you know, like a kindergarten art project. And I love kindergarten art, so I just go to here, but it's, you know, this is really something that if you've got a stake here, if you had a stake here, if you know, we're a part of this fantastic place called, you know, School District 161, and we'd love to hear you.
So what will the process be to select the logo?
We'll bring 3 back to the board.
What's your process to select 3?
We are going to, once we have collected our sampling, we're going to lay them all out. And this is my thought on this. And of course, this is something entirely subject to other input, that just have a, you know, vote to see, you know, what are the top ideas, what are the top visuals we want to bring in. And we're going to be voting. The communication committee, which is a posting committee that meets publicly. And, you know, certainly, I think if somebody wanted to come, it's not a case of, well, you know, your last 2 weeks, you can't, you know what I mean? But we'd love to hear if somebody is a great editor, has a great eye for visuals, and would like to add input. I think that is certainly valid. And I always encourage anybody and everyone from the community who would like to come to the community engagement committee. We would like to engage with the community, so we'd love to have it. And that includes, as far as I'm concerned, administrators, the custodial staff, anybody who would like to come and participate in this. From my perspective, I would be very happy to see it. But I think if we vote on our top 3 and send that to the graphic artists and say, look, these are the ideas that we've generated in our group think tank, you know, can you give us, you know, 3 sort of finished logo designs that will fit our needs. and then they produce that to the board can look at that and then come to a vote. So it's entirely organic for the community. But it is going through a professional designer, so this is, meant to be a bit polished.
So I think it would be great, it would be a great carrot, actually, to get more people to come to the community engagement meeting if you can announce, when the announcement goes out about the meeting, that this is also an opportunity to vote on the logo. And that might be a way to just draw more people into the meeting. So I think typically there are how many people?
Well, there's typically a core of 5.
So part of the challenge becomes, we're gonna have several hundred submissions, and it's gonna be a time consuming.
One thing I think we could do
Process.
is just have a whole gallery, that we walk around and get a chance for people to look at things. We're beautiful space. And just go through and, put up some post-its or, orange dot, blue dot, we want to do that and stick a, see what seems to be the voice from the judging community that shows up that night. And then bring that to the graphic designer and have them announce it.
Next item, superintendent's report.
So I want to start by congratulating our partner sports teams. Our girls softball team had a really good season. Unfortunately, they lost in the first round of the playoffs, but they were barely outdone by our boys baseball team. They did win regionals. Unfortunately, we lost in the sectional round. Regardless, we're really proud of our student athletes, our coaches, and I hope all of them, including our parents, enjoyed the season. This Wednesday, there's another important date to share. There's actually two important dates in this update. I want to encourage the parents of our 5th grade students to come out for our outdoor education parent meeting that will be on Wednesday at 7 o'clock at Parker Junior High. We'll be able to gather information about the outdoor ed learning experience, but also ask all of the questions that you may have as you consider sending your child to an overnight school trip. I want to thank the parents, I want to thank our staff members and teachers that really make that trip possible. It's hard. I know as a teacher I've been on that outdoor education trip, and it is challenging for all involved, but the students have such a great time. So I'm thankful for everyone that sacrifices to make that possible. The next really big date before we have a chance to meet again is the Parent Visitation Day. That's a week from Friday. That's on October 5th. I don't have to tell you if you've been involved with it in the past. It's an amazing way to get into our classrooms, see the really high quality work that happens on a daily basis by our students and our staff. If you haven't already, you'll receive information from your child's building principal regarding the plan, so look out for that. That's it, right?
Any questions or comments? We have a series of discussion items. First one, October board topics. Any questions? Any questions about the October board topics? Administrator and teacher salary report.
This information is posted on our website. It's in the statutory requirement.
I just have one quick question. This information is, as I was taking a look at it, is it updated?
It's 17-18 data.
Okay, so it's not updated for 18.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments about the report?
I see the question.
Excess textbook disposal. Questions or comments? Next item, Washington DC trip discussion.
All right, I'm assuming we may have a little bit of conversation around this. Want to welcome Mr. Fred Hunter and Ms. Annabelle Crawford to talk just briefly about the proposed trip to Washington, D.C. You have the reports in board books, so if you have any specific questions about the documents, you can do that. Otherwise, Mr. Hunter.
So we are excited to offer an opportunity for our students to be able to go to Washington DC. This will be a trip for our MKHS students. And so we wanted to start with a smaller group to be able to see the possibility of being able to move it forward as far as maybe a possible 8:30 trip. But we want to start with a smaller group, work with the company, see if we can get the staff buy-in. The staff is excited about it. We have a number of staff members that are engaged and want to participate. So the trip would actually take place during spring break, and so it would not interrupt our construction. So we looked at a number of vendors. We also spoke with different schools as far as the community that also go on the Washington trip. And so,
Who are some local districts or local schools in East Point?
Colin Powell, they go, there's about 4 schools in our conference that go on the Washington trip.
They go at the same time?
Some of the spring breaks are over here.
Oh, they also go on spring break?
Yes.
Is this part of a larger curricular design that will, I see that it is, if I'm not mistaken, the National Junior Honor Society is our initial group. Is this part of a National Junior Honor Society link up there somewhere in terms of, are they going to meet people in some Washington DC chapter office that would, invite them in to explore TC through National Junior Honor Society?
Not at this point. It's an opportunity, of course, as far as to explore as far as leadership opportunities, but also on the service learning opportunity, and also an opportunity as far as college and junior,
Okay.
along with the different sort of tracks.
And so I imagine it would tie into like the social studies curriculum to some degree, or is it independent of what we're doing at the school?
No, it's not independent. I would say the more focus is on the leadership piece and the service learning opportunity. And so one of the pieces of the feedback that we got from our students was wanting more opportunities for students to have more engaging, more like field trips. And so this is an opportunity to learn about government, to learn about history, and also that the NGA can participate in a service learning project with the possibility of visiting colleges and more higher education.
I think this is when I saw this, as Rick said, I thought this is terrific. And I'm really glad we're pursuing this. So my questions are just, to sort of help clarify, what are our outcomes here? Are we still in the process of sort of looking into what we want to have our kids get out of this? Or is this something that 90% or 80% we've identified things that we want our kids to have as outcomes for this trip?
So definitely in terms of learning the history is definitely a part of it, with also the service learning piece as far as to support the work of our NJHS students. Again, as both every Thursday, college day, an opportunity as far as to visit college.
Okay, and my last question is, would there be an opportunity for our students to meet with our local representatives that are working in Washington, just to sort of further build that linkage between, authentic leadership at a federal level and help kids sort of build those steps toward that. Because I think that some of the narratives I've read over the years, including the other Westmore and things of that nature that often kids read in high school to inspire them to really explore these great opportunities. There's world out there of opportunities that never occurred to kids that they could pursue. And I hope that that moving forward, we will always keep this in mind. Is I can even say from my experience on the board, I have, as an adult, I have learned and seen things through a network of talking to other people in other governmental bodies in our community and also in other parts of Illinois. The kind of the underpinnings of why things are and looking at ways to generate opportunities as well.
So that's something we definitely pursue as far as the opportunities some of our local issues. One of the nice things about the company that we want is we'll be able to tailor our children. So we will definitely try and make those improvements.
Well,
Yes, no, that's so, it's pretty much covered. I think it's a great idea, and what, I think I saw here, maybe you already get to that a little bit later. So there will be some fundraising involved for kids to kind of offset or pretty much is going to be a trip where we're going to absorb the cost for the most part, or is it going to be 50/50, or we really haven't gotten that right yet, or what?
So the students and their families will be responsible. So we will have fundraising efforts as far as to try and increase the cost.
so I have a few questions. I mean, I think in general, it's fantastic to be able to do trips. It would be great if, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade did different types of activities that were, very specific to each of those grades. Not necessarily going out of the state, but, there was something that, 6th and 7th graders could look forward to as well. So my first question is, so why, I'd love to hear the thinking behind why selecting the NJHS students versus creating some other more inclusive process and selection process especially since we're not paying for it sounds like, and so the responsibility would be on families. So what was the thinking behind going with NJHS students?
So one of the pieces is, again, feedback as far as from the students in terms of the trips. We wanted to do something as far as for our include students before they left. And we wanted, we thought it would be overwhelmed to offer as far as the whole grade class. So we got buy-in as far as from the NJHS leadership team, and so we had that structure in place as far as to be able to move forward, I'd say quicker, and target the students as far as
So I would think, I think it's important to be sensitive to parents who, if I was a parent who did not have an NJHS student, I would absolutely want to hear an explanation from the school and the district why my child could not go. Especially in the spirit of having an equity and inclusion committee where you're specifically looking at things and calling them out, that's sort of not necessarily a red flag, but that requires a little bit more attention and with a specific equity and inclusion lens. So I think thinking about that will be very important. My second question is, so what is it that makes this a district-sponsored activity?
I don't understand.
So what is it that makes this a District 161
Our supervision.
official activity?
Our organization,
That's what makes it an official activity, but again, it's happening over spring break, so it's not a curriculum-based learning experience. So we talk about the equity lens, I think we absolutely can have conversations about making that shift. Once we make that shift, then it's a board responsibility. So
So it's not a board responsibility if we only go with NJHS students during spring break?
School's not in session at that time, so then it becomes an optional activity. And then, again, I think there's a lot of value to the let's do it small and let's do it well. Your question about, well, what about my kid is valid. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have a safe, manageable experience. And I know there's been a lot of parent support behind this as well, and everything kind of came together in a perfect tornado of support, which with staff members being willing to go overnight and on spring break, students being interested, and the parents as well.
So I'm just going to push back a little bit.
As much as we.
So we should just be very careful when we use the words safe and manageable, because then there's this assumption that our NGHS kids are only our safe and manageable kids.
No, the
So
assumption is to be 25 is more manageable than 300.
So then, when we're talking about it, then it's, so 25 is a safe and manageable number.
Yep.
Not, we're going with NJHS kids because that's more safe and more manageable.
Right.
I'm playing devil's advocate as a parent who, would not have an NJHS kid, right? Like, so I need to walk away understanding that this is not, that there was an inclusive process or thinking process, right? That this is not an equity issue at all. So that over here, if I go back to what is it, it's an optional activity that will be provided during spring break. So is the district, what will the district be responsible for?
Besides supervision, I'm sorry, I'm just feeling, I don't know what you're looking.
Okay, so let me
we are
say it
organizing,
differently.
we're organizing, we're providing, we are paying for the sponsors to be there, to give their time overnight. Obviously, students are paying for the cost of their trip. So I think we're providing organization, I think we're providing the structure in order to have the trip. But if I rephrase.
I'll rephrase my question.
Sure.
How is this different in terms of the district's responsibility when I look at what we are responsible for in terms of insurance or whatever for the outdoor ed?
The outdoor ed, the district takes on tens of thousands of dollars of cost.
So we are not taking on any cost associated with the DC trip.
Dollar cost.
Our dollar cost is in person power, paying for, we'll have to come back with an MOU to pay those staff members. But for outdoor ed, Fran, do you have, I was asking all the time what our ballpark, please hold one second, see what our ballpark piece is on that. But the board subsidizes the cost of the trip in general, pays for transportation, pays for all of the staff, all of those pieces.
So we will not be subsidizing any of the students' costs who will be participating?
Okay, is this different from, say, if the band was taking a trip to New York City to go to Rockefeller Center to do some band thing there?
Only advanced students will be.
Right, we're only the band students because they sign up for band, or they audition for band, or, choir or ensemble. Maybe ensemble would be better because there was a criteria by which, they were chosen for ensemble and choir, and they're going on this trip. Is it analogous to that, where there's a clear criteria by which we selected these kids for something appropriate for their organization? Does that make sense?
It's closer. I mean, if you consider, I think about high school, the Jeff Park and Red Bull.
Yeah.
I would say it's similar to that, but even that gets into school sponsored a little bit more into their fundraising. Michelle's fundraising to offset the price of their trip, and then the parents are paying for the trip, correct?
The HF has no responsibility for the HF musical trips to Europe. It is the HF Parent Choral Association that is sponsoring the current trip. HF doesn't assume any liability or pay anything. We are fundraising all over the place. So
maybe
let me know if you need anything.
You need a coupon code, right?
Right, well, and fundraising starts a year in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what
because
that's
we
about?
did the, yeah, so I'm also familiar with it, and so it started a year in advance.
So that lends to, again, making a decision as far as the small, starting with small. So getting started a little bit later, having to hit. So again, working with NJHS versus the whole 8th grade, we have to have a chaperone for every 10 students. So getting the support as far as the staff, as far as the kids, that fundraising efforts as far as parents in. So that, we felt that would be a lot in the short time. So that's one of the reasons why. So this small
That kind of touches on to my question about, is there a national headquarters for NJHS in DC that they would go to, or something that's tied to the mission statement for the organization that they would then do that? Because obviously, you know, if you're a band and you're going somewhere on a trip that's for a band purpose, it's part of the mission of the band to, you know, create these musical experiences. I was seeing this as a great opportunity for all of the points in NJHS, as I understood them, that they would then expand those in DC, you know, or create like, you know, augmented, you know, experience that they would have here. And yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, they're doing service.
Right, so I was thinking that I'm kind of talking this out from the questions and conversation. I was looking at that as, you know, a very appropriate way to you know, to expand their experience that they would otherwise have in, you know, Flossmoor on School Street to go to, you know, to Washington DC. But, and I think maybe going forward, if we were able to look at this in terms of, okay, well, why are we going to DC? You know, what are the outcomes that we want a larger group of 8th graders or something like that to go as well? So then maybe that might be something we need.
So again,
Okay.
but we definitely look to see if there's the organization that we can, that's ready.
And so then the rest of the 8th graders, they would just do the Six Flags trip as part of their 8th grade experience.
That's right. We have explored other options. We had the local pilot, which was basically a water park. It was ideas going about going around in regards to former Springfield. So it was
So, I mean, I think in general, I mean, I love the idea of the kids having this experience. My only hesitation is providing this experience to a very, very small number of students that we have done that in so many cases in the district since I've been in the district for the past 15 years, you know, our exclusive set of activities or things or exposure to certain things only to a small number of kids when we have so many kids who would be able to benefit greatly from different types of exposures. So if this moves forward, you know, my ask is that please give thought and serious thought to the types of experiences you want the rest of the 8th grade students to walk out and leave with, and give something for your 6th and 7th graders to look forward to when they are in 8th grade as well. Because I'm just going to be honest, if I was a parent who was sitting on the other side, I would absolutely be furious that my student would be denied the opportunity to have that exact same type of experience. So we just need to be prepared, you guys need to be prepared to respond to that, and so that there aren't any even potential issues of equity or inclusion. I mean, in anything that, especially after having gone through the handbook exercise, when we don't think something sounds like an equity issue and we actually dissect it a little bit. So sometimes what it sounds like and what it actually is could be two different things. But I just want to always be cautious of that. And so if the response is 25 students is more manageable, you know, that's more palatable to me than to have not used the 25 number and lead with, we're looking for safe and manageable numbers. And because then my mind immediately goes to,
Did I say that?
no.
I said that.
You said
And-
that.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I think one of the questions for the board is, as we look at the equity lens is moving this trip to the last, the third week of May and the board meetings. Right, so that's the equity lens. And so that means every kid, regardless of background, opportunity, group, has an opportunity to go to Washington DC. It's a $300,000 cost to the district. So I think we do have to address those hurdles. To Michelle's point, you know, what can we offer all of our children? You and I have talked just about those touch points for each grade level. That wow, this is a really great 6th grade experience, 7th grade, 8th grade experience. Where do we want to plant those flags in each grade level, and then we're going to provide those experiences for all kids. So I'm with you. I think these are important questions to address.
I think one of the things too that crosses my mind is when they do get to HF, there are a lot of what we're kind of describing are like high stakes clubs, right? So if I don't get in the club, I don't get to have this experience. So like the chess club goes to Peoria, but you have to be a member of the chess club to go. So that might not sound like a big deal, but it was a huge deal. That was the first overnight trip that my son took. So it was like, that was exciting and it was great, but it was exclusionary, right? You had to be part of the chess club, you had to be able to play chess, and you had to be able to perform at a certain level to go. The basketball team, once, they did very well, they got to go to Peoria. So there are some things that require special, specific skill sets that are by nature exclusionary. So, I had a weeping kid when he didn't make the basketball team, but his skill was not up to the level of other kids that were able to make the basketball team. So I think, just when we think about the different activities that we provide and the reasons why we provide them, I think everything won't always be able to be for everybody. Or even like the Gifted Art Club. I had a sad kid who didn't get into the Gifted Art Club. So there are some things that we have to think through from multiple lenses to figure out whether it's equity or whether it's by nature the fact that we have this, that it's automatically exclusionary. Because every kid, for the example of NJHS or basketball team, every kid cannot be a part of those. And we set this criteria that says you can be a part of this if you match these criteria. So then this becomes a club that has a certain set of activities that they do. Requirements, service, schlepping the bin for whatever, back and forth across, things that they have to do to earn service requirements. So I want us to think about that too, because the fact that we say, yes, we want to have something like this, it's a reward to be a part of this club, and then it comes with it kind of freedoms and responsibilities. Just throwing that back.
No, I appreciate that. Those are absolutely good things that we need to think about as we continue to work through this, as well as anything else that might pop up. But just also making sure that what our goal should be is to create amazing experiences for all of our students. And so when we aren't doing that for all of our students, then that's when we just have to ask a lot of questions. That's the challenge that's put on you as well as all of our buildings. Like, what are we doing to make sure we are providing amazing experiences for all of our students? All of our students won't be in the club. All of our students will be a part of NJHS. That does not mean that not all of our students should be entitled to an amazing experience in each of our grades.
And maybe the way to think about it is going forward, and is that, how can we make this happen for for kids. And I would imagine, one of my children would be, who scores very high on, test scores and, has done well at school, might get into JHS. And another son who is very talented in many other ways, but may not reflect the exact criteria that would get you into NJHS, that this might cause some sort of trauma at home of, well, how come this kid got to go and, I didn't, and again, this is, in a way, it's sort of thinking, well, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but, is a purely merit system on academics, the filter by which somebody can do this versus, the service part. Is there, something you consider maybe that we could expand, that you can do, because as we're talking about everybody, certainly, I've had field trips where I've said to kids, listen, kid, I'd love to take you to the art museum, but frankly, you're not doing what I ask you to do in class. I can't trust that you're going to be doing that when I take you somewhere else. So we really need to have a serious conversation about it. I would love for everybody, and I mean everybody, to go to a place like Washington, D.C. for this great experience. But, certainly I think that we're going to have to really plan this out. And so I think that this year I would be very supportive of a service group like NJHS to, sort of test out this model going forward and just build from it.
I wonder then if it's also time for us to think about a middle school model, again, where that you'd be able to have teams of kids go that would be naturally smaller groups, not just for a trip. I like the middle school model for a lot of reasons, but I just wonder if as part of this conversation, that's something that we should start to think about.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, from a slightly different perspective, we also need to think what is considered an amazing trip. So, my daughter, when she went to Parker, thought Going Great America was the cat's meow because I would never, ever take her to Great America. She's been to D.C. She has been out of the country. She has been to Florida. She's been every place, but I will never take her there. She thought that was the best thing ever. So let's have a little bit of perspective on what we think is a great trip.
Right.
But I actually think involving students going forward in the process of where should we go, where should we do, right?
Yeah. That's a good
I
job.
think that you said that it just kind of came from students' suggestions. And, again, I think it's a great opportunity for learning and for service. But even closer to home, and it may be something just for somebody to consider. The state of Illinois, going down to Springfield, I have sat in the judicial committee, and that is an amazing experience in how they, go about passing laws and how they are formed and all of that. And I think that can be a great experience too, just to add, closer to home and how our state government works here in Illinois.
It's good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice thing. So we have Capturing Kids' Hearts up next. We wanted to come back. We've talked for a long time just about the implementation and professional development, all these other pieces. And so now we just want to give a quick update on what it actually looks like in the classroom, in the hallways, on the ground. So welcome, Mr. Hunter, and I know that we have a few staff members here. So.
Good evening. The Parker staff is excited to be able to share with you the exciting updates of the positive changes that's happening in Parker as a result of the hard work of our staff implementing Capturing Kids' Hearts with their commitment as far as every child, every day, whatever it takes. We are building a strong community. We are building a strong community of learners as we develop positive relationships, as we have shared responsibility using a common language, And one of the most important things is being able to affirm those in our learning community. And so we have seen a change as far as in our school community by implementing Capturing Kids' Hearts. And it has made a difference not only as far as in the classroom, but also as far as in our staff meetings. The administration, myself and our team, we practice the different pieces of Capturing Kids' Hearts. And so we're out greeting students, shaking their hand, but not only as far as with the students, it's also happening in our staff meetings, which is making a huge difference. And so we see more engagement, we see more collaboration amongst the staff, and that's again, we're greeting the staff as they come in. We are sharing affirmations as far as with each other, and so all around we're building a stronger school community. And so we're going to have some other members continue to share.
So when we went through the training, Capturing Kids' Hearts, they gave us this toolbox of these wonderful things. And as we were going through, they talked a lot about the Excel training model. And really what it is, it's about engaging every student as they walk into the room, making sure that you're making that connection or taking the time, and you're seeing every student for who they are. It really has changed the way we interact with kids because you find out what's going on with them before the lesson starts, before class starts. Even when you're walking in the morning, you have some students who you're reading at the door, they look upset and they're like, oh, honey, what's wrong? And that creates, I have a fight with my friend. Somebody sent me something on social media. So it opens up this dialogue that you probably wouldn't have had this conversation before. We also have the social contracts. I had to go into every sixth grade class and watch the meet and greet. I tried to make sure I stopped in. Everybody had their own flavor on it, but every social contract was great. And some kids who were really engaged in one class, maybe took a step back to another, but everybody was adding something. All the kids were part of it, and it was amazing to see. And they all were excited to sign their names. Even at lunch, you see kids say, follow. You owe them 2 affirmations. And then you'll have kids say, that's not good enough. So then we have to remind them, like, doesn't matter if you think it's good enough. If they felt it was an affirmation, it's good enough. The 4 questions for misbehavior. This has been a huge change. It's something that when you handle the discipline, you don't, I have to constantly remind myself. I have Post-its all over to make sure that I'm asking these more questions, but the kids are awesome. If I forget one, they're like, hey, wait a second. This is what I'm doing, this is what I should be doing. So they're learning it right along with us, and they're holding us accountable, which is exactly what we want. Because in talking to a lot of our students, they feel like these last 2 weeks, they know their teachers. They don't let their teachers down, and they really feel like part of the school community, which has been amazing. And then finally, the listening skills. One of the things that Capturing Kids' Hearts really emphasized was that when we're engaging with someone, we have a tendency to do other things. We try to multitask. There's no such thing as multitasking. If you're not present in the conversation, you're not really listening to the kid, have you really taken the time to know what they're talking about, to make that connection with them? Because the whole point of it is all of these personal connections and building these relationships. So if you're not present, then you're not listening. And so I found myself, you have your door open, you're working on something, someone comes in, I have to remind myself, and I told people, hold me accountable. If I have my computer open and you're asking me a question, say, hey, call me up, tell me to close my computer. I should be listening to you. Because if we're asking our kids to do that, if we're asking our teachers to do it, we all should be doing it together. I feel like just in a sense of community with the kids, when they come to the office, there's accountability for actions. There's not a lot of, oh, I didn't do anything, I don't know what you're talking about. There's, I didn't want to let my teacher down, yes, I'm going to apologize. We don't get the same kind of pushback. So it's been a really good experience. And now our teachers are going to tell you a little bit more about the ceremony.
All right, before you move on,
Oh, yeah,
can you just
sorry.
give us an example of what's in the social contract and who signs the contract?
Okay. So depending on the classroom, that's what's in. The couple of things that they have is no push down, or no put downs. And every class has to have that and active listening. So those are things that we have to have, but I've seen things in social contracts like be nice, be kind, don't say mean things. And it varies from class to class. And it's really a list of words or things that we promise to do for one another. And every single person signs a contract in the room. And then when you enter a classroom, so if you guys came into one of our classrooms, a student would ask me, please sign a social contract, because now you're moving into their space, so you can live by what their contract says. And then they hold you accountable. So once you walk in, you're accountable for that. And so for parent visitation day, you'll all come in, and every class will have them, and they have their own flair. So some did a lot of different colors, some they used one color, some they cut the words out and glued them on. So it really depends on the teacher, but they're all similar, and then there are these keywords that we promise to live by.
So the teacher signs the contract as well?
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
I guess what I would love to, and I hope this is part of the plan here, is that at the end of a certain time period, we ask teachers to reflect, ask administrators to reflect, and maybe even ask kids to reflect anonymously, how did it change their outlook on teaching, your coworkers, peers, in general. Because I think that this is a very powerful thing, if you let it be.
Yes.
And from what you're describing, I think that it's something that it just goes right into, even that level 4 evaluation, when you want kids to take ownership of the class, and want adults to back off, but really teach the kids how to interact with each other, especially as this magical thing called puberty is happening now. For some reason, they lost all the skills that they're in kindergarten.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that this is, I would love to see how this changes their perspective.
All right, this is our turn. We get a chance to act out what we do every day, so just walk with us, we're gonna walk you through it, all right? Good morning, Tiffany. How was it playing with the HF Band Friday?
Well, it was nice to see her.
I bet you did. It was amazing because you were there. Can you see yourself as a future Viking?
Oh, yes, go Vikings.
Way to go. Go ahead and do your bell work and I'll chat with you a little bit later.
No problem.
All right, good job. So you saw a little bit of all of those, all 5 in that quick little 30-second snippet. So when we talk about the engage, you're going to see a video of that a little bit later. So when we talk about engaging, some of us do a high five, some of us do the handshake. Our students carry a lot of stuff. Some of us do an elbow bump. I've even seen a little pinky touch. What I'm looking for is eye contact. I'm looking for the good morning. Somehow ask questions if it's not a smile. What's going on? Sweetie, get started on the bell work. I'll come back with you a little bit later because I'm concerned and I don't see that normal smile. So that's key. And then it goes right into the explore. So when I begin to ask her about her question, number 1, I know something about her. I know she's in band. I know that they played Friday. So that way I listen to her so I'm able to explore how was it. I'm able to communicate. Can you see yourself as a Viking? Sure I can. That empower piece is key, and then the launch, go ahead and do your bell work. I'll chat with you a little bit later. So that's just kind of it in a nutshell, those 5. Can we go into more depth? Sure. But we're talking about a 30-second conversation that we normally wouldn't have. And what I love the most about this, 18 years in this district, 15 years at Parker, these are some things that we naturally do, but now we're intentional. Now we're deliberate. Now we're doing it. It's not just in my classroom or Ms. Washington's classroom. It's whatever classroom you go into. That's the impact. Power in numbers, that's what we see. And hopefully you hear your students talking about it. Hopefully there's a buzz in the community, and that's what we want. All right? And if I go on to the, should I push this? Here we go. So we just talked about the engage again, the brief greeting, the handshake, the relationship building. Students love it when you talk about them, right? This is what psychology has told us, and this is what we know about capturing kids' hearts. They're using research-based information. So if I listen to a student and I show them that I'm listening, active listening, they're going to want to come back and tell me things.
if there's a potential fight coming up, if there's a concern at home. Why? Because I've established that relationship. And then the next one, again, you kind of saw some of that, the facial expressions. Now, oh, hi, it's you again. No, my face set the tone in that classroom. When they come in, man, is he like, what, the high five, she's like, I better be ready. And then they come through, and it's kind of weak. I catch their hand, and I'm like, oh, let's try it again. Come on, sweetie, tell me something. Okay, Miss Peacock, good morning. All right, so they have to give me more. So my facial expression, my posture, my tone of voice, the handshake or the high five or fist bump, my posture, my eye contact. As Mrs. Williams mentioned, focusing on them. I want them to feel like you're the only person in the room, the 30 seconds you're with me at the door. I've got some big classes, so when 28, 29 kids are waiting on me to come in, they wait patiently, nobody's complaining, because they're gonna get their time with me as well. All right? All right, Miss Washington. Oh, got a little video for you, then Miss Washington. How do I play?
Awesome. So what you just saw was the engage piece in the beginning. You see a little handshake by a teacher. Oh, that was me. In the classroom, just to kind of engage the kids. In my particular class, we have our own handshake, so we kind of greet each other with that. And then you see a wonderful teacher in the room back there, and she is spending time with each child going on as they go on to the bus, right, to make sure that they have that moment with her, right? So even launching them into the next part of their day. And so that's what Capturing Kids' Heart is all about, right? You have their hearts, you have their minds. All right. Peacock made it seem so simple. What am I pushing, right? There you go. Fabulous. Okay. So I get to talk about social contracts, and when I think about social contract, I instantly think about elevators. Okay. How many of us have been in an elevator? Okay. All right. So you're in an elevator, and as an adult going into an elevator, when I go in, I try to stand as far away from the person that's in there, right, to give them their personal space, right? And then at one point, that person might look at me and say, well, what floor are you going to, right? That's a nice thing to do. And then I tell them, they put it in, right? But have you ever seen kids come into an elevator? Right? It's a different experience, right? They come in and some like to push all the buttons, right? They don't care about personal space. They just have a good time, right? And I think that there's not any written rules on the wall, right? But as adults, we've learned, right, that there are some rules that we socially follow, right? In the past, I would say, at Parker, our approach was to assume that everyone's been taught elevator etiquette, right? Everyone knows that when you get into that elevator, you're not invading anyone's space. We don't assume this year. Capturing Kids' Hearts means when we make our social contract, we're assuming nothing, okay? We're talking to our kids about what do you want? What type of classroom do you want? What type of school do you want? What type of environment do you want? And we get the buy-in right away, okay? And we're talking about why don't we push those buttons, right? Why don't we invade other people's space, okay? And having those conversations ahead of time then allows when we do have those mistakes, then we've already established what we want to adhere to. In each classroom, every social contract is different, okay? You have those lovely colorful ones, right? But everything that you're going to see is that you have a signature from the students, right? Which means, hey, I believe in this, right? The teacher has agreed to it, and then any person who's invited as a guest into our room agrees to it as well. As well. Okay. So I had the pleasure of putting a survey out we sent a survey out to the entire staff at Parker, and the sentence that we said was, the Capturing Kids' Hearts program is, and we just asked for honest feedback. That's why we said that, I was like, oh my God, yes, my God. So we had such a range of responses, right? And that's what you're seeing right here. But 80 to 90% of the responses were extremely positive. I mean, amazing, phenomenal, people use, inspiring, okay? Wonderful, all these positive, incredible, all these different terms. Because people feel like it is changing their craft, right? We're basically creating excellent teachers, excellent, 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 because they are involving their students in every aspect of the classroom. We did have those people who said good, okay, right? And it's because it's a shift, right? It's a mind shift. In the sense that some people said they're extremely tired at the end of the day, right? They're exhausted. This is a lot. You are giving yourselves emotionally, okay? You're creating relationships. It's what we do, and you're doing it every period, all day, okay? And so people are adjusting to that. And they also said that, you know, as far as there's those few children, we have about 10 to 20% of our student body that we're trying to capture their hearts, but they need some more supports, okay? And we've established some things to kind of pick those students up too, to try and help them along the way, right? Because sometimes, even if you have this Peacock and this Madness, this Washington, you just need a little bit more, okay? There's a little bit more to your whole, success in school. So overall, I would say that the results were pretty fabulous. I'm so glad that you guys allowed us to have this program. I feel like I've been telling everyone I've been doing Snowflake for 15 years, and I feel like we took Snowflake and we brought it to the district and we gave it to everyone, and I'm so glad I'm a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you all for presenting. I think one of the pieces that I've tried to do, I've heard a lot of comments, and my typical response is, have you told the teacher? People have noticed the change at Parker. People have noticed how hard staff is working, how hard the administration is working, how hard those kids are working. Because that is not easy. There's a million emails to send, or parents to call, or maybe go to the bathroom once a day. And so being at that door, shaking hands, making those connections, and really forming bonds with kids. So I've seen it in action. I have been impressed since day one. So kudos to the teachers and the administrators at Parker. They are really on a different path, and it's really nice to see some success for them. So thanks for all of your hard work. Are there any particular questions for the teachers and the administrators?
Are you thinking, this was a great presentation, thank you very much. And I so appreciate your energy, and I've had several kids who've had Peacock, and this has been you long before, she will call you if the child gives a weak handshake, because something, so I do know that. But I am interested to hear, and it might be too early, and Steve, you alluded to this a little bit as well. It would be great to hear what students think about this, and are they using capturing kids' hearts when they talk about, like, do they associate capturing kids' hearts with what? Or are they just experiencing change and they don't even realize what's happening behind the scenes? I don't know the answer to that, but it would be interesting to hear from the kids' perspective, especially your 7th and 8th graders, about what's different this year. Does anything feel different this year? What specifically? Can you name it? So it would be, I think, very telling to see whether or not our students are feeling the energy and excitement and receiving it the way that we hope they are. I think that's just another side of the equation that we need to consider.
We'll bring children to our next presentation.
Oh, please, perfect.
Because I think part of the goal is, remember, this is rolling out the elementary level next year. So we have experts at Parker, and they're our highest level. So ultimately, all the work we do at the elementary schools is to deliver the most capable students to Parker. So we really want to have that student feedback that give us some insights as we go down to the elementary level, but it's a large expenditure. And so we want to make sure that the implementation is going well, and I firmly believe that it is. that we're gathering information and measuring it, but that we hear from the people who are implementing, and the students are a big part of it. So we'll make sure that we bring it through.
I can say that at Bloom, I get a lot of really great kids that come from Parker, and they all mention all of your names. My name, oh yeah, they really made a big difference.
I have a question for any of you. Is there anything that parents can do to support what you're doing specifically in regards to Capturing Kids Hearts? So I'm a strong proponent of parental involvement. Is there any language that you want parents to be using, or is there anything that you're doing that we can reinforce? Should we be launching our kids to school with the same type of things that you're doing? Is there anything that you could provide to parents so that we could be as much on the same page, so that it feels like a continuation of what you're doing? If there is, if you could send that with parents, that would be great, because I think parents would love to be able to engage in this with their own kid, and just to be able to support what you're doing if they're able.
Or maybe even do a parent university on it, so that parents actually get to see what you just showed us, so that we, you always get your kid's version of the day is always slightly different than, so I think, so I think that would be a great parent university, so that, and actually, bring your kids to that university too. So there's all different kind of ways we could think about it, but I think, I agree, like how can, right, so when we think about community, it's not just what's happening, what you guys are doing, it's how do we as parents become part of that community and support this work. So.
I would say that the social contract and the 4 questions are something that any setting, family, I think that's something that we want to bring to our parents, showing parents the process of building that social contract, because there is a system to it. It's not just, let's sit around the kitchen table and build a social contract. There's a systematic way to build it, where each person, each member answers a set of questions on what their beliefs are, how they want to be treated, how they would like others to be treating them. And everyone sort of voices their input on those things. And then from there, you brainstorm a way that you want to treat each other as a unit in a particular setting. Your social contract for being on a road trip across the country might be very different than your social contract for eating at the dinner table when everyone's home. You might have different expectations amongst your group, whether it's, screens or phones or whatever. Might be more appropriate in the car when you're driving long distance than at the dinner table. So teaching the parents that system of how to build a social contract, and even creating a family one, the refrigerator and everybody signs it, when guests come into your house, or your kids' friends come into your house. This is how we do this at our kitchen table, or this is how we do this in our basement when we're playing video games, or whatever the case may be. And those 4 questions, whether it's a teacher or a parent, kids don't like to be yelled at or, approached aggressively, but just going through that system of what are you doing? And allowing them to respond, what are you supposed to be doing? And what should you be doing instead? Those questions are real meaningful ways that a parent, regardless of what their child is doing, can get to the heart of what's going on. So I think that those are skills that could be adapted to any scenario. So if parents were using those at home and using those techniques and creating those social contracts, it would be a big support at home.
Thank you.
Now moving to the really exciting part of the agenda, grant updates. But we do have a couple to share. We'll start with Title I before moving into our pre-K grant update. Annabelle, just to give just an update of how we've funding allocations this year, last year, ways that we've spent the funds. Again, this is just an
I'll try to be just as exciting as
Only if you have video. You don't have video.
I don't have any video. Shucks. So just a quick update on our Title I and Title II spending. We've been utilizing those resources. Again, just to quickly review, as the Student Succeeds Act, gives us a little more flexibility than we had in the past for utilizing our Title I funds. As before, we have 4 schools in our district that are school-wide Title I, which means that we have 40% or more students who qualify for free or reduced lunch. So that opens up being able to spend those Title I dollars for all students targeted and just students they're allocated for. Title I is different from Title II. Title II covers mostly professional development. So just a quick rundown of how we utilize our Title I funds in the district between 18 and 19 school year. This year, we decided to dedicate a large portion of our Title I funds to adding reading specialists, additional reading specialists in our 4 elementary buildings. So to give you a perspective, that took up more than $220,000 of our Title I funds with salaries and benefits for those staff members. We're very excited about their impact and the support that they're able to provide with longer-term instruction and supporting teachers as well. Our Elevate K-12 after-school tutoring program that we started last year and we're continuing this year, that gives additional instructional time for our students and is also at Parker and in our elementary schools that receive Title funds. STEM activities, so things under this are accelerated weekend opportunities that we do with Western, those are funded with Title funds as well. We are required to spend a portion of our Title dollars on parent engagement activities, so our parent universities, our school-based parent support activities, those are all under Title. Additional supplemental resources, so licenses, intervention materials, many of those things come under Title. And then our Fuse Studio course was something new that we added this year at Parker Junior High School. Also through Northwestern, again, ESSA opens up more flexibility and space for us to use the Title dollars for different resources, and that was one of those we were able to utilize. So for Title II, professional development, again, not an exhaustive list, but in general, our ELA, math, social studies, our science professional development comes from our Title II dollars. So the professional development that we have throughout the school year is generally funded by Title II. Our gifted education, professional development, our FIU courses through Northwestern, as well as some of our outside presenters, that's all under Title II. Our professional development for our instructional coaches throughout the school year is also part of that. Big initiative under Title II this year for our district was Capturing Kids' Hearts. So Capturing Kids' Hearts took up about $72,000 to $75,000 of our Title II dollars this year, and we are so pleased with the impact, and we feel really great about that. So looking ahead to next year, we would anticipate that our Title dollars would again be supporting Capturing Kids' Hearts. Administrator coaching and professional book study. So when we have our in-services with our administrators, our results coaching book studies, our culturized book study, our partnership with Connect Ed this year, all of those are through Title II. And then professional learning conferences, so various conferences like the ICE conferences, ISTE, the differentiated coaching conference, all of those are under Title II. General idea of our allotments, 17-18, you see the numbers there, and then 18-19 for Title I, a little drop for Title I. And then for Title II, 17-18, about a little over 113,000, and this year a little over 115,000, keeping in mind that our non-public schools also participate in our Title II dollars. So for example, Boston Montessori takes a portion, a very small portion of our Title II dollars. IGP takes a portion of our IGP dollars as well. So any non-public that has a student in our service area that qualifies for free or reduced lunch, those students take a portion, and those schools, we work with those schools to identify what they'll be using those funds on.
Can you go back to the Title I?
Yes.
Do you know, or Fran, maybe you might be able to answer this question as well, what has been the trend? Do you recall whether the 2016-17 number was lower or higher than the 474?
The allotment, I want to say was lower, but we had a lot of carryover. That's my recollection. I think the allotment itself was high 300. I think then the carryover added.
So that's why 17-18.
Right, some of that was still included in that.
We have are we pretty steady in terms of the allotment per year without looking at carryover? Is it been reached?
Or does 18-19 include carryover?
No. And in terms of our, do you mean steady in terms of our free or reduced lunch?
Well, yeah, just in terms of, like, the carryover is we didn't spend it and then it carried over to next year. So that, 2016, 17, we was free something, but we didn't carry over and then eventually carry over. The 2017, 2018 year, I just was curious in terms of was it around 401, 766, or was it,
I believe that the carryover that we were allowed to keep was around 30,000, if I recall, because we had some issues with that. But, so if that gives you some perspective, if we take about 30,000 out of that 474, that would maybe kind of give where we were in 17.
okay.
It was still higher.
Sure, okay. And is there, in terms of what we're carrying over, are we just being very conservative when we're budgeting? And it turns out, well, we didn't need to spend all that, and so therefore it's carried over?
There's no carryover.
Yeah,
Are they-
so
Okay. I'm just trying to think of,
we've allocated our funds, and it's just been.
Yeah, actually, instead of being conservative, Steve, I would say that we're actually being very aggressive.
good,
Title funds are really meant to accelerate student learning.
sure.
And I think, to Annabelle's credit, we've really gotten that money into the classrooms and in front of students, changing their learning experiences, additional time, those sorts of things. Really things that will make a difference for kids, which is really the best way to honor federal grant money and tax dollars, to make sure that we're putting it into the best places possible. So we actually really aggressively spend this purposefully, but we don't want to leave anything else on the table in the year.
No, that's great. I love hearing that. That's fantastic.
To answer your question, so of that 474, 37,000 of it was carried over.
Okay.
And the allocation for that, just that year was 436,800.
Okay. Fantastic.
So just think back to
That's kind of where this was.
2016.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, we're there.
Glad to hear it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was exciting, right?
Yeah, that's great. I can't work, but
All right, so we had a quick update on the pre-K grant. Will join us to share a little bit of information as we're moving forward.
So as you know, the pre-K grant, we received almost 4 times the amount of money to service, according to their documents, the 144 children that we had initially requested, which was 4 classrooms. Initially, the request included transportation, a mental health consultant, snacks are required, so it still includes snacks every day. But it also included a lot of different things, really awesome toys and furniture for the room. With the amount of money we were given, they really funded us, in my conversations with Fran, they funded us as an existing program, which meant we got a certain dollar amount above what our allocation was per child from last year. The new programs were funded almost $1,000 more per child to kind of establish the new programs. Because we didn't get that extra $1,000 per child, there's not any money in the grant really beyond salaries for the staff. So we need to expend district funds to get the furniture. Now, I will tell you, we're looking at every nook and cranny in the buildings and finding the furniture that exists, because we've had little people before. Our classroom is great. We have a lot of furniture. Our teacher has already earmarked it to thin out some of her things to move to another classroom. One of the benefits last year, there was extra money, and we had just been evaluated, and our evaluation showed that we needed a few more things in a few more areas. And I had less than 5 days to turn around a grant request, and $37,000 came into our pocket with what we needed from that. And so all of that equipment as well, we used a little bit last year, but we can also use it this year. We're able to share it across the new classrooms. So right now we're on a timeline. We have preschool screening here. We screened over 30 students. It was a very, very busy Thursday. We have, of those students, I think 15 or 20 were made eligible. So we are waiting to open the program. Probably we're looking at October 15th open date for a new classroom, but we may fill the current classroom with some of those students. We're hoping to have 2 additional classrooms. One will definitely be at Flossmoor Hills. The other location has not been 100% determined yet. One of our caveats is our teaching staff. There are very few preschool teachers out there right now, and the grant didn't open officially until the end of August. So we couldn't really hire somebody this summer because we were hiring blind without information from the grant. So we're out looking. We have posted the positions all over, requested information from all over. I have lots of notes out to all of my colleagues to say, hey, any applications in your queue that you don't need, let me know if anybody's still available. We have the benefit of hiring a true preschool teacher. They may not have a Pell certificate, but they have to have a Gateway Level 5, and they'll have 5 years to obtain their official Illinois certification. Our goal, of course, is to find somebody with the Illinois certification, the proper certification for school. But again, right now, there's just really not very many people out there. We have also availability to hire a full-time substitute. So somebody with a bachelor's degree that has early childhood education would be great. Again, I really want the classrooms to be fully blended classrooms, which means I need a special educator that can service those students. There's no leeway in that. We do have one teacher with all the early child credentials that could consult with the classroom, but again, I'm still holding my breath, waiting to really try to find somebody with the right operating credentials. So, but we'll be ready to go. We have 3 more preschool screenings set up in October, one on the 10th, one on the 18th, and then the other one is the 24th. So we'll still be filling the rooms. So we're really very excited. And we've also reached out. Amy Kent's been phenomenal, working with me to reach out to the Chronicle. We had an ad coming out in October's edition, talking about preschool screenings. We had an article, My Visions article, which will be out early in October, is also about preschool screening. And then I will be asking for some support from some of our local staff to help hit the places where parents use laundromats, they use churches, just hanging the signs for preschool screenings to call everywhere we think we could hit kids that don't need our services.
I had an opportunity to speak with a very positive and supportive community member, no kid in the district, that is obviously just very connected to District 161 and Flossmoor in general. And part of the conversation revolved around, look, what's the district doing to get kids in sooner? And I felt so proud to be able to share the direction that the board has gone, the direction that Robin has led us as far as expanding the pre-K grant to, the more kids that we can serve from ages 3, 4, and 5, the better off we will be. We will talk about that launch. That's how we get those kids in kindergarten in a much better position. So I know Robin has worked really hard on this, starting from the spring. That 5 days was big. There's a lot going on, but she really turned that around and got that big chunk of money, and then wrote a really high quality grant. So we had the opportunity to expand. So Robin, kudos to you for all your hard work. It's going to mean a lot to a lot of kids. Excited.
One more piece. I know that the board was told that we rated a gold quality rating on our review this year. the district had had a silver rating previous. So gold is better than silver, and I was really, really excited about that. That, I think, helped making the changes in the program to receive that gold also helped reflect in our grant proposal, which then helped us achieve the monetary source that we have.
Is this something that he is also sharing with the Chronicle and I mean, that's something I would be.
I'll make sure that the gold circle of quality is put out there.
Yeah,
For sure. I'm very, very proud. We made some significant changes in the fall, Kelly and I working together to see that come through. So it was very exciting. I mean, the kids are getting a great quality program, so it's nice that it's recognized. There is no higher level. Gold is it unless you write a whole different grant type thing.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
Are you doing the Bright Star
If there are
here?
questions.
I am if there's any questions.
So Bright Star here, are there any questions?
That's just, I just want to make sure, so that's really just in case we need to utilize their services, why you lead us to approve. Just, so are we anticipating that we're going to need them possibly?
I like to be proactive, and if I can be proactive, I want to be proactive. The rate for nursing is quite high. So the Bright Star nursing care rate was higher. I was going to bring it to the board last month, and I told them, look, you're way out of our ballpark. And she said, well, I can match your current vendor. So they are matching our current vendor for it. I'm excited about having another opportunity. Sometimes there are just no nurses to be found, and we like to make sure our buildings are covered. We have some relatively medically fragile students. So we just want to make sure we're taking care of them. The other piece I like is the outdoor ed piece. Like we'll be in Wisconsin this year, and Bright Star has a nursing agency that's affiliated in Wisconsin. And so we can hire them if need be to support our nursing staff there. And really we're looking at kind of overnight shifts, so our nurse can sleep. And they'll wake them up if something terrible happens, but at least we'll keep them covered.
Yeah, we did a couple of situations last year where, you know, things happen in families, and so if our nurse isn't able to attend, we can be left in the lurch, which really gives us just a backstop in case something goes wrong.
Any more questions? Oh, okay, interagency agreement for vision and orientation and mobility services. Any questions or comments? No? 2019-2020 initial staffing discussion.
I will guarantee that this is the earliest this conversation has ever happened in District 161, and I would almost be willing to bet in 99% of all the districts in Illinois. But as we wanted to get our levy conversation started, it was important that we look at this whole pie, right? So we understand exactly how the dollars flow, and really our biggest expenditure is always personnel. We are a people-based business. So we just wanted to start, these are initial numbers, they can change, we can add, we can delete, we can adjust them however we want. But at the beginning of the levy conversation, it's important to take a look at our staff. So if you have the report picture, the other one. It's a different, the other one, the actual report.
Okay.
So I want you to understand how we got the numbers. There's really two ways to look at class numbers in general. You have the students who are currently sitting in classrooms, and then you have typical survival cohorts, 3-year, 5-year. We tend to use 5-year, and that's how you'll notice there is some fluctuation in our class allocations. So we used 5-year averages. We dropped all those into the Excel spreadsheet. At kindergarten through 2nd grade, we targeted 20 students per classroom, which is the same as we did last year. 3rd through 5th, we targeted 25 students per classroom. Generally speaking, would you hit control plus 2 times?
Control what?
Or command plus?
Make it bigger. Okay.
Okay. So we're anticipating potentially needing some additional support at Western. It may be art-based teacher, but generally speaking, it's probably 1.0. We'll have a conversation coming back to the board, and I have Serena, that's my should be Heather Hill, to discuss STEAM teachers at the rest of the elementaries, along with the STEAM pilot that we currently have going on at Serena Hill School. The board will have to make just a determination on that. In the chart below, you see some estimated elementary staffing numbers for the elementaries. Parker isn't even on the radar. That is a whole deal with scheduling, but our focus at Parker will be to bring you a tentative schedule somewhere around the 1st of February based on those winter map numbers. It won't be perfect, kids can jump around all over the place, but we at least want to be able to build an initial schedule to say, here's what we think we'll need at Parker, here's how the people mission. If you look at Flossmoor Hills, just to start, so Flossmoor Hills, really everything is the same except what happens when you use that 5-year average. Over 5 years, Flossmoor Hills has had some fluctuation, especially at first grade. So we anticipate getting enough to add a 3rd section. So that's one of those 2.0 increase, but also at 5th grade. Right now they have 2 sections of 28. 27 to 28, we can still run those. You know, again, the board has to decide its tolerance for some of those class sizes. All of these additional staff members count. So if we're comfortable in that 27, 28 range at 3rd through 5th, or even 4 or 5, we can bring down our overall additional classroom FTE. But at Flossmoor Hills, we probably look, if the numbers stay this way all the way through March, we look at adding 2 FTE. One of them would be at 1st grade because of the 5-year averages, but also at 5th grade, where we have we have 2 large sections in 1st grade than 5th. And then it all stays the same. It stays at 12. We'll look at some of the numbers on the individual charts after this. Serena Hills would actually contract. They have a larger group moving out of 5th grade. I believe there's 4 sections. No, they have 3 sections, and then basically most of the grade levels below 5th are in June. So it's really just a trade. If you give that probably 2 years, that 1.0 comes back as the averages come in, but also as the grade levels move. And then at Western Avenue, that 1.0 ends up in 1st grade, where we have the 2 larger kindergarten classrooms. But based on today, those are already dropping students. So again, these are just super preliminary estimates. If you go to the spreadsheet, if you wouldn't mind, and zoom in if you would, just a few. Okay, so all the charts are the same. You have grade levels. Along the left-hand side, you have the estimated number of students. You have the projected FTE, and when I say this is a PDF. So, to give you the numbers, you have your number of students. Again, those are all 5-year averages. Take that number at K2 is divided by by 20, and then 3, 5, 25. Yes. That gives you your projected FTE, and then the actual FTE is what we would recommend. So realistically, if it's 2nd grade, for example, it's at 2.6. If you've ever seen a 0.6 of a teacher, it's not great. So we might as well make it a full human person. But that brings those class sizes down to 17. Right? So that's the effect of looking at the target class sizes. I think all of these look very respectable. 18, that's a low class size in kindergarten, so 17 in 2nd, when it's not obscene. Found a report from, I think it was 2011, maybe 2012. We were running sections of 11 at Heather Hill, which is up next. Excuse me. So Heather Hill is one that we'll want to keep an eye on. Now, the other piece, and here's what we did this year, if you remember, in kindergarten specifically, we estimated somewhere around 30 students. We staffed one kindergarten position, and then we budgeted for the second, and then just held on to it. And we ended up adding in the students enrolled. We may want to do that. I mean, you can see part of our challenge at Heather, at 5th grade, for example. We have 33 students. That's what we're expecting to have next year. And, well, I don't think there's a threshold for running a class of 33. I wouldn't recommend it. It's just not fair to any of them. But we're also in a peculiar situation where we can overflow kids, or we can add additional sections and run multiple sections at each grade level. So they tell you to keep Heather Hill a school, we have to have at least 2 teachers per grade level. And by school, I mean at least having a partner to collaborate with, having, the ability and for the principal and the BLT to separate students and come up with class lists that are meaningful and recognize students' talents. Not that anything would happen variously to the building. It's just a different feel when you have 1 teacher per grade level, and those teachers at the bottom line. So this would be the anticipated class sizes at Heather. Steve, good.
Yeah, I have 2. One, and this is, I think I already know the answer, but I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. So when we do have 2 teachers per grade level, that becomes the building grade level team. They are meeting with occasionally the other grade level teams in other buildings, or communicating in some way, either by video chat or something.
Probably not too many video chats, but certainly during the school improvement days, where we bring teams together. One of the things that our Department of Learning Instruction and according to a really good job is creating a professional development plan that's sustained.
Okay.
So year 2 of the math, where we're bringing grade levels together. Year 1 of Writing Gen, now we're bringing grade levels across the district together for teachers to say, okay, here's where I'm stuck or having success, and they can work together with that.
Okay, so there is a larger community in grade level across the district. I know when I was at my high school, they have 2 campuses that they work from, where during PLC time, whoever wasn't there, they flipped open a Chromebook and they were there virtually, and then it needs some time, which is in and of itself takes some getting used to. But to your point, I think it is very important that you have somebody you can bounce things off of and get it in perspective. My other question in regards to when we have low class sizes, I know that John Hattie, who everybody references at some point for now 150,000 pieces of metadata, or a million so far. Talks about that, on average across that sampling size, his data has not shown that, there's a huge difference between a class of 16 and a class of 30 in terms of actual student learning. But he did, in an email, he seemed to say to me that, part of it is that, it's a large sample size, and that, one of the indicators is that when you have a teacher that's used to having a class of like 26, 27, 28, then when suddenly they have a class of 16, they're still teaching it the way they would if they were a class of 26. And so my thought is, if we are seeing historically, or a pattern of low class sizes, maybe we might give consideration to having teachers start adapting to the class size less, so that they're not,
I would expect if we're running classes of 15, we should see a tangible difference in the types of learning experiences that are at.
Right, this could be a tremendous opportunity for kids, and for everyone. So that all the things that we say, yes, the class sizes are great, that we can, with some fidelity, start implementing in a meaningful way. again, those are things that all tie to, across the district level teams and certainly through curriculum.
So I have a more pragmatic question, because obviously, based on my committee, I
Right.
looked at this 20 different ways.
Yes.
So, if we ratchet it back, so the student population is indicative of who's in the neighborhoods, so that kids.
Right.
So, the 5-year projections that are used are based off of the historical school enrollment. So here's what I'm saying. If something is going on in any particular neighborhood, and so people, in theory, people are targeting the area of Western Avenue. So you're just gonna have more kids here, because that's where people, when they decide they wanna move to Flossmoor, in theory, that's where they move. Okay. So then you're gonna have that 400 and something kids, because it's just more families moving into the area, and because the map is drawn to house more kids. So then that makes other communities or other neighborhoods a little bit more susceptible, because they just don't have the population of kids. Then we get into this issue with Heather Hills or any other school that happens to, where you just don't have the number of kids.
Right.
So when we go, I'm sorry, so then when we go off of historical school numbers, I don't know where the 5 years come from. Is it off of the school, or is it what's going on in the actual neighborhood? So the movement rates of families and what the development
So,
of families.
yes to both. There's a winding explanation. So we use live birth data to estimate the kindergarten numbers. So that's how the initial staffing process happened. These numbers would represent 5-year averages for that specific school. So try to take into account, the turnover of houses and younger families moving in, or families getting older, and, those class sizes going up and down. So it's a little bit of both, but the numbers that we've used here are specific to the buildings. So, the other piece is, yes, sitting on the finance committee, you can see the increase in FTE, and we use a number of 70,000 per staff member. That might be a little bit high, so we can probably sharpen that pencil a little bit before we come back and really tighten up those numbers. But when you look at the available seats, we are an elementary district, and that's why when we talk about 21st century learning, we talk about learning management systems, it's really important to me that we have consistency. We have to be able to give the same product. I don't mean to speak about it in a sterile way, but that same educational learning product at Western in second grade as we do at Serena in second grade, and Flossmoor Hills, et cetera, et cetera. Well, as we look at ourselves as one district, and we have, for example, 2 sections of 15, that's when we get into the overflow, right? So if we can absolutely run those. But what if we tried to run every kindergarten at somewhere around 19 or 20, and we brought additional students into Heather Hill from Flossmoor Hills or from Western to try to keep all of those numbers down? The increase in the initial FTE here is responding to class size, but also not leaning into sharing students between buildings. So we can absolutely absorb the peculiar fluctuations at some of the grade levels because we have open spaces at other buildings. We just have to determine how comfortable we are using all of those spaces. Now, the perfect storm would be as we close the sections at Western and other students, most of our students went to Heather Hill. We'll give all of those families the opportunity to come back. Some will want to, and some will say, I love it here, I'm going to stay here, this is my new school. But, if half of those kids come back, well then we're probably adding a third teacher anyway, because they're just students in the building. But as our enrollment declines, because that's what it's currently doing, that's why it's kind of glaring that we would be adding staff while our numbers are going down. We're going to have to come to grips with the differences in overall school numbers, which we could do by fluctuating some of the boundaries potentially, but also the vast differences in class sizes between the schools. That was a long answer, I'm conscious, but There's a little bit of nuance to the whole piece. Okay. Ooh, Serena is next. All right, we did recapture one section. Need to double check that math. But again, a little bit larger class sizes compared to Serena, to Heatherville. These are averaging somewhere, the average would be around 21.5 probably. Heatherville's probably somewhere around 19. So not too far off, but certainly different. And then finally we have Western. Western, we had that current, it would be first grade here. We have the two sections of, kindergarten. Right now, they're sitting at 25, 24. They could end up somewhere 24, 23 by the end of the week. But if you look at the students who've transferred in, you think of kids coming out of Fallsville Montessori who've done there for kindergarten, then they're going to join the district for first grade. That's probably where that bump comes in. And then as you look further on down the line, again, 3.5 to fifth grade teachers. Yes, you can start at 28 and see if you get the kids, but you're going to miss the hiring window. You're going to put yourself in some tough spots. So these numbers, again, are certainly appropriate. Second grade and third grade are around 24, 25. But again, we have sections in other buildings where we could close those two classrooms and then overflow students to other parts of the district without too much of a hassle.
So is this going to be your
No.
proposal?
No. I would not say that this is the proposal, this is the starting point. Because if we go back to the report, Kathy, if you would mind. All the way to the bottom, please. So you have the two, I would call them classroom FTE. Those are the two classroom teachers, whether they're first grade, kindergarten, et cetera. And then you have the Western, some combination of ACE. We know that we may need some additional support there, whether it's a 1.0 or a 0.5. I think we can do some work on that over the next couple of months. But also, I would anticipate some additional support, at least on the initial success of STEAM at Serena Hills and at Parker, that we would need additional support at the building. So we'd be looking at 6 additional FTE between the classrooms, and the additional staff members at somewhere around $420,000, which we want to review. Again, that could be a little bit high, but this is the aggressive rating. And the reason we're talking about this tonight is because we have to start talking about the tax levy, and all of these pieces work in concert. So I don't know that this is I would not say this is the final recommendation, but this is the place I would like to begin. Certainly any staffing feedback from the board, I'm more than happy to take that. Look at the numbers. If you want to look at different ways to organize this information, I am all ears, but this was just our initial pass.
Can I ask a question? I think I can't find the other place, but so if you look at Western fourth grade, what made
spreadsheet?
On the other one? Sorry.
Okay.
What made you go, if you projected 2.96, the leap to 4 instead of 3? So the numbers are similar in third and fourth, 77 kids versus 74 kids. So I'm just curious around the thinking there, like what made the leap to not 3? Because it would be less than third grade, it would be like, I don't know, 24 kids. I'm just curious how you do this. And then when I see that, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were had the other schools in mind. When you
because you're really running those at 24, which means you can absorb somewhere around 9 kids and keep those manageable. Yeah, I would actually probably take that back to
Or just in general trying to keep K1-2 at the lower end.
Right, or the move would be recapture in fourth grade and then it goes up to second. You know, so you're just putting the staff where the need is.
Yeah.
I apologize for missing that.
So you said move it to where the 3.70?
Correct, so, right.
4 instead of, I got it. Okay.
Right, so then they'd be somewhere around 18.5. Fourth grade would go up to 24, 5 or 6.
Thank you.
No, thank you for putting that.
Now, I have a question. I also thought, it's good to know as we're getting into levy conversations, but I also thought we will be doing this because we did have parents who came to, talk to the board and petition the board because there was an overage in the classroom sizes. And so I guess my question after, looking at this information, have we addressed, is this kind of what we're looking to, and how is this addressing currently the problems, that we were having in that area with that, or is that done, is that a done deal, finished, no more?
Well, I think it's how we talk about it. So we anticipated all of these class sizes last year. And in our initial conversations, we knew that we were going to run 27 and 28 at Baltimore Hills in fourth grade, and we knew that fifth grade would be somewhere around 27, 28 as well. So it's really just, there's two pieces. This is next year. So what we're doing this year, we are reshaping schedules, trying to push additional adults into the classrooms to provide support, making sure that we're communicating with those teachers to give them what they need. There's a couple of pieces here. One is Title I comparability. So as our free and reduced numbers go down, or our Title I numbers go down, obviously you saw our funding can't be impacted. Well, we know that Western Avenue is not a Title I building. The challenge there becomes Western Avenue has 25 in one kindergarten and 24 in another, right? That matches Baltimore Hills. Title I comparability would say we cannot decrease the teacher-to-student ratio at Western any more than any of the other buildings. So looking to address those class sizes with outside staff, I'll call them outside if we're adding a teacher, we really mean we're adding teachers everywhere. I think what we've tried to do is use aides and paraprofessionals in the buildings differently. As I've talked to teachers, and I know as Annabelle has spoken with staff members, the consistency is a real big piece. I remember being a classroom teacher and getting a paraprofessional, it was like another job because you have to plan for them. Probably not a teacher, depending on their background. So the amount of work that goes into planning for someone else to come into the classroom to work is one thing. If they can't be there every day to work with students, that's another. So we try to generate some consistency in the schedules, push additional staff members into the rooms, and that's how we're going to address the class size.
I just while this piece, and I'm going back in my mind to when I was in school and beyond that point. There were teacher aides back in the day, I believe, if I recall correctly. So this is where the paraprofessionals,
Sure.
And the teacher aides allowed the teacher to be able to teach more kids, or to basically, it's a word I'm looking for, I can't think of the word, but to be able to get some more kids, to be able to, if anybody knows what I'm saying, just come out and say the word.
They address more behavioral issues, whereas
Right.
the teacher addressed more teaching issues.
Yeah, that too. But it's another thing, I mean, it kind of gave a little balance. It gave a little balance in a sense. So, I guess what I'm asking, I understand what you're saying, but we need consistency there every day, and every paraprofessional, I guess it doesn't come with the same day. And even back in the day, I believe there were even parent volunteers that came in and helped me. So we're in a different day and time, I get that. So how can we we offer the support to the staff members and to our children, support that they need in this day and time.
Right. Well, that's what we're doing. We are, again, as we have paraprofessionals with full schedules, we're pushing them into those classrooms. Again, this isn't a one-off decision. This is an every building decision, right?
Across the
So,
board.
right, so it's a $120,000 decision, right? Again, to bring in the additional staff. So what we're trying to do is use our current staff differently. We're trying to break up large classrooms flexibly so that we're spreading them out over, instead of having 2 teachers, spreading that literacy class out over 3 teachers, or spreading that math class out over 3 teachers. So now you're looking at 18 students for a core academic area. But the numbers, these numbers in theory will continue for years in various places.
Like a projection.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, 27 in 4th or 5th grade, it's okay. I don't think anyone would write home asking for it, but the numbers is manageable. Adding a paraprofessional to that classroom will not generate any additional educational growth or achievement. But what it does generate is quality of life. So I am sensitive to that. There's something to be said for, there's 2 adults, we have 28 kids, you 14 go to the bathroom that way, we're going this way, you know what I mean? There's just things that can happen when you have to try to work with that number. So I think part of this discussion can be, what's the board's perspective on adding paraprofessionals? I typically do not recommend it, but as we look at our staffing, we'll be sitting here in August next year and we'll have a bump in enrollment, pick your grade level or your building, and we'll have to decide, do we look to add a paraprofessional, or do we split the group, add another teacher, do we bump kids to another building? So I think that's part of the benefit of starting these conversations earlier. We can try to anticipate how much they'll all cost financially, but also the human cost of a teacher in that classroom, because that is very real as well.
Well, so for me, because I know the rest of you will point in on the human cost, so I get the advantage of just pointing on the money part. That's not the part I care about, but just, so if in theory there is if there's a cap and then kids are kind of dispersed into other schools, then have we looked at what that cost would be for, as it relates to transportation and that kind of thing? Because if we don't gain anything by doing that, and then we do better by just putting the teacher in, then let's not disrupt the kids. See, I care about the kids.
Right, it's just a wash. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, this is an exercise that we go through every single year. Granted, we are doing it earlier this year than we normally do, so I think we all appreciate that, and looking at how that will impact the levy conversation is also appreciated. I think at the end of the day, the goal is understanding that everything has a price tag to it. But the decision of whether or not our students and our teachers are being supported the way they need to be this year is not contingent to me upon whether or not we want to spend additional money this year. Like, I want to make sure we are doing everything that we can to support teachers and students this year, right now. So I understand an additional adult body in the room may not be providing any additional instructional support, or actually, maybe they do to some degree in the kindergarten class, right? But I also want to make sure we are not looking at $120,000 cost tag as our reason for not making sure we are not doing what we should be doing as a board. If the board, or the decision is, or I think what I'm hearing part of the solution has been is adding additional support where you can in some of the classrooms with the existing aides, so they're spending more time in those classes. Is that correct?
splitting up core classrooms, so for those core instructional pieces. You know, we can move in any direction that the board would like. We just want you to be able to clearly understand it. And again, when you talk about adding staff, it does become a one or none, right? Because it's all or none with the way that we have to keep the student-teacher ratios. We can dig into the wording to make sure that if there is some flexibility there. And then, you know, if we wanted to add professionals, the feedback from teachers has been, I need the person every day, all day. Right? And I need the same person. So it becomes, depending on which, if we left Western out, yeah, we can get away with one policy. For titles, we would anticipate that Western's kindergartens are going to drop to 24, 23. Right? So that's not even EduCap any longer. So then the question then becomes, what line generates the additional aid? First grade, we do have a 25. At Western, it's not up here, it's just the current number. So I think we can absolutely move forward with the board's direction, but we have to know that if Western is included, it may become adding 5 staff, not just one.
Right, and so so that we better understand your comment around the Title I. So if we add additional staff to Western, then it impacts our current Title I cycle that we are operating in.
Yes, right. So look at it this way. If we add staff members to Western at kindergarten, so for example, Western class sizes they would be 24, 23, right now they're 25, 24. At Serena Hills, they're 21, 21. There's really nothing to add there. So we're going to add additional staff to Western, whose free reduced numbers at 26%, and not to Serena Hills, and their free reduced numbers are over 70%. So we're reducing the staff to student ratio at arguably our wealthiest building. Okay, we want to give kids what they need. But Title I would say, what are we doing for the students who potentially are exhibiting the most need in the district at Serena? They'll have higher students to staff ratios than Western.
And this is for our current 2017-2018 Title funds.
You mean 18,
I'm just trying,
18 and 19.
18, 19.
That's why 19.
So FY 19.
Right, those are currently.
So I think there's a couple things here, and again, I am very aware that I am not an expert on elementary education or how logistically how this would map out. I'm just asking questions to try to, maybe build some possible bridges here. I think what might be a good line of questioning is to think, how could this work? Or, certainly what have we heard that we need? Or is it strictly a Title I issue, or is it, developmentally looking at, there's a transition from 5th to 6th grade, so would it make sense, is it feasible to establish a practice where there's a lot of issues that have to be dealt with in the 5th grade that to help transition and prepare kids to be successful in 6th grade, so we might have, somebody in the building where there is a larger population, or maybe somebody floats throughout the district to work with kids in some sort of support, so that we can address those transition needs for the kids, where it wouldn't necessarily be as much of a burden on classroom teachers, and they could focus more on specific learning objectives. So, in a very broad sense, does that mean that we say across the board, we really need 5th grade to be a smaller cadre, because this is when we really need to, prepare them to go on to that next level, or, which I don't know the answer, I'm not suggesting, or, in kindergarten, do we look at this as a practice across the board where, we want to keep the class size at 22, or something, and then start looking into, look, we get additions, would you like to go to, another school, because this class size is getting larger.
That's a perfect example. I gave people numerous opportunities.
I'm sure. We've been thinking, this has been
They didn't want to leave their neighbors.
looking at old, issues of divisions, and this has come up for years. People, I think something like Flossmoor Fest, some of the kids, these kids when they're in the 70s, oh yeah, the class sizes were a big issue. I'm like, oh, come on, this is like the exact same conversation.
So is your question, I'm sorry.
So what problem do you want to
Question
solve?
or challenge?
My challenge
How
is,
do you make this work?
my challenge is, my question is, what are our actual needs that have come up historically and, certainly in the short term that we can, look at without, devoting a lot of time and energy to do something too exhaustive where we could say, well, maybe 24 for some kindergarten teachers is a great size. Maybe that's the perfect size kindergarten class. And the real issue is just convincing parents that no, you're in the perfect place. Or that looking into the anxiety it seems that comes with class size. And that's kind of what I'm mostly getting from parents is that they're anxious. Oh, my kid's in a large class size, and they're 5th grade, and I don't recognize them anymore because they're not like they were in their 3rd grade. And some kids are little rambunctious. Maybe we need to address that on a like a parent university level. You know what I'm saying? So I think if we looked at what the actual need is, whether it's parent anxiety, which I myself had plenty of over the years and still do, or is it the case of, well, this is kind of the feedback we're getting that it really would help to have an extra adult in the room, or what are look at our current practices of helping teachers work better with parapros so that they're not having to spend like a part-time job training another adult in the room.
Sure.
Again, I don't have the answers. I'm just proposing.
And Michelle, were you talking about this, you're talking about 18, 19, right?
I'm talking about, current, yes, so not this. I'm talking about our current, yes, 18, 19 year.
And Dana, do we still have 25 and 24 at Flossmoor Hill? Is that right, in kindergarten?
Flossmoor Hill, 25, 24.
25, 24, and then 25, 25 at West Van.
25, 24. Looking to go to 24, 24.
Okay. And you're saying if we would hypothetically add one at Western, we would essentially have to add one at Flossmoor Hills too?
No, everywhere.
Oh, across the way to keep the numbers, to keep the ratios proper.
Right. So, that becomes the other challenge. Last year we ran 2 sections of 28 in 5th grade at Flossmoor Hills. And we did not add paraprofessionals.
But we have had other years where our numbers have looked like that, and we have had parapros in classes.
We can do whatever.
Right, so my point is that every single year we have, and I'm not suggesting we have a hard and fast rule. I think that it's worthy of a discussion every year. And so there are years where class sizes have been large, we didn't put in a parapro. There have been years where they have put in a parapro. So every year it has been something different.
But we haven't been consistent.
We have not been consistent. So I just want to make sure. So, and I actually agree. Like, what is the need? Like, is there an actual problem that we are trying to define? And that's not.
Or is it this class needs this? Or, because I think a couple years ago.
I don't know the answer.
I don't know
to that.
Right. And so I think a couple years ago, there was an issue where, and actually the teacher wound up quitting in April and saying, that's it, I hate teaching, I'm leaving, and we had to get somebody to finish up here in the same class where there was an issue, where there was a lot of kids, and, either the teacher didn't feel supported, wasn't supported, or wasn't properly trained, or whatever, that, things didn't go well in that class. And whereas last year, yeah, they seem to be going great with even more kids. And I think, in my experience, teaching is that every class, every year, they have their own personality and their own needs. So I would, to echo what you said, certainly as a, board member with fiduciary responsibility to the community, I would, certainly, support, fiscal responsible decisions, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we want to get value out of our mission here, which is to provide the best educational opportunities we can for every kid. And some kids, they may need different things in different classes. So, without, being presumptuous and telling people what to do for expertise I flatly don't have, I can just say that I would support, hearing, what are those needs and whenever they come up. And, certainly I hope that you would be very candid about saying, okay, well, this might cost a little more money. It is a little later in the year, maybe, my team and I have talked about this, or, I've looked at this critically and thinking, this is an area I might want to explore, and I'm certainly love to hear that from you, our expert.
Well, I would recommend staying put.
Okay.
But I'm hearing the board may want to go a different direction. We can absolutely bring a plan back to address that. Just as long as we know what we're getting to going forward, I can bring back as many models as you want. So we can bring back a model with paraprofessionals, and bring back a model with teachers, but we'd just like to get some direction on parameters.
Are you hearing anything from our teaching staff as to what these numbers are really close?
Yeah, I don't think anyone loves 28, but I've heard from one that said, oh, I got 28, and we've heard feedback that's like, this is too much. Right, to Steve's point, it's relative. If you were a teacher at Heather, and for the last 6 years, you've had 11 kids or 12 kids, the 18 that are in third grade are now, a big shift for you because it's, add a third to your classroom. So I think it's teacher dependent. By no means am I saying 28 kids per classroom is perfect, but I certainly think it's manageable, and we can look at providing support.
Or you're saying it has to be consistent across whatever we do?
I think rules are maybe broken. Essentially, you can have some flexibility there. We would just want to be clear, like, do we want to run? So let's just carry this forward, right? So this is a real life example. We will have 27 and 28 rolling forward at Flossmoor Hills to 5th grade next year, right? We're anticipating sections of 17 at Heather, 21 at Serena Hills, and 20 at Western. So do we want to just cap those two classrooms of 27 and 28 and make it a rush to get kids registered in the first 25 who can register for each class with guaranteed spot at Flossmoor Hills, and then the others we can get into a classroom of under 20, right? That's part of the challenge that we have. We have tons of open room. It just depends on where you're looking for the open room at a grade level.
So, okay. So then, I guess I go back to what Steve said, was that we need to figure out what's important where, and as a district, what you believe is important. That's why we create caps in the first place. And then live by those caps, and not get nervous when it gets close to the cap. So I'm mostly interested in hearing that, like what you believe is what is appropriate at each grade level, and where we need more or less. And if I understand, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Any change is a domino effect, right? We're not looking, I think you're saying that we're not looking at any of these situations in isolation. If we add here, then we add everywhere, right?
Correct.
All right.
Well, but it sounds like if we don't add at Western, then we don't have to add.
Right, so Western is,
Because they're not Title I.
they're the confounding variable.
If we don't add at Western, but add someplace else.
Because then
we
you're
don't have to add at
you're
Western.
increasing student-to-teacher ratios for
Yeah,
your,
so we could add someplace else,
Right.
not add at Western, right? And we can add at Western and then not add.
That's what
someplace
creates
else.
the domino, right? I mean, so I don't think that what the board is saying is that we want to move in a different direction. I think what the board is saying, or at least certainly what I'm saying is, before we move on, if you feel, like if the decision has, if I go back to your comment on what is the need, so if there has been a need that has been defined through conversations that you have with building leadership and teachers, and everybody feels good, then we can't argue with that. We have to, okay, then that's good. But if the overall sentiment is that actually teachers don't feel good, right? Because we can't ask the kindergartner how are you feeling about it. Right? Although mine thinks Ms. Picos and Dr. D is like the best thing ever walking this earth, right?
You too. You too, Dr. D. I hear it all the time.
Steve, just only because we're getting a little bit late. So when you have two teachers, both high classrooms, one says I'm fine, one says I'm not, how would we respond to that?
I don't think the response is to not respond. If you have a teacher that genuinely feels like they need additional support, then how do we give that teacher that support? Like, I feel like that's our job, is to figure out how do we then give that teacher that support.
I think we've done that. I think we've provided that. If support means how do we give them additional staff, then we've done that in a different way. But I think we have to be careful, what problem are we trying to solve? Are we focused on people feeling better about the situation, or being able to support the students better in the situation? Because if you have 28 kids on your way to library, but you have 18 for literacy, is that providing support to the teacher, or do we need to just split the classrooms, split those two classrooms up into 3, bring them down to 19, do a lottery, and then that's the support? I guess that's what I'm trying to be. I'm trying to get clarity from the board. We always listen. If someone says that they need help, we're going to provide them help. If help only means adding staff, then I need direction.
Well, again, I think we don't know how to define what support means, because we don't know what teachers are saying they need additional support in. All we're saying is if there is additional support that's needed, however you, the building leader and teacher, define that, we would be willing to support that. But the answer is to not do anything and say it is what it is this year because of Title I or all these other issues. I just want to make sure we are being responsive and responsible.
Sure. And I would say we're in this position because we chose to. We anticipated a number of these class sizes. So again, that's why we're starting our conversation. We can know how low we want the class size going into next year. As early as possible, we can respond to whatever we want. But like I said, when we had our staffing conversation, I found the sheet. We literally talked about, for example, that 27, 28 classrooms.
Okay, I understand that, but we are now here living with that, living in the moment in that decision. And if now the decision is more support is needed, then that obviously impacts how we will think about this going forward. But I don't think that if that's what we decided when we had this conversation a year ago, now that's what we have to live with if this is not a livable situation.
100%.
We can be
Absolutely.
Flexible. We can change
Right,
as a board what we want.
Right, but what I'm asking for is clarity on who can't live. Because what I would recommend is that the class numbers are absolutely appropriate. If there's people on the board that can't live with the class numbers and we need to change them, we can do that. What I would say is conservatively, running 20 kids in 5th grade is certainly not perfect. It's manageable. Running 24 in kindergarten. We do have 2 sections currently of 25. It's not how I would draw it up if I was drawing my perfect building, but it's certainly appropriate. But if it's not manageable for the board, I can bring you options on how to change it.
So, I want to make sure I understand. So for the teachers that have said, I'm struggling or I'm overwhelmed, you've provided levels of support, correct?
And we're trying to be as aggressive as possible with that.
And being creative with what that support looks like. So after whatever X amount of days or weeks, you'll circle back with them and say, is this enough? Or is this working? Or what else needs to happen?
Sure.
Right? Have any of these teachers in these high classes, have you not heard from some of them? Have some of them fallen off the radar, they're fine, they're moving along and they're okay?
Yes,
Or is it all?
I don't want to out them.
No, I know. But so some people are saying, I don't need support, I'm fine, this is good,
Yes.
life is great.
I
right?
would assume.
Okay, but then there are those that are, and those are the ones that you're watching, correct? And you're saying, here's the support, and then you're gonna circle back if you need more, right?
Yes, but here's the challenge. The 20 in Miss Fry's class at second grade could be overwhelming her.
This was gonna be my next question.
Right, and we wouldn't know it other than the feedback that we would get from the building principal,
Right.
because she has 20 kids, and in the last, like I said, I found the report from 5 years ago, they had 11 kids in second grade. So we talk about the academic achievement, we have not seen a meteoric rise in growth and proficiency out of those classes that were running 11, 12 kids. So I would hate for us to walk into this conversation as long as we can decrease those class sizes enough, we're going to see the academic achievement. No, it becomes a quality of life achievement, right? I'm happier when I go home. Maybe, right? So what I'm looking for is just some direction on the options to bring back, because I would say that we're working aggressively within our current staff to provide support, to reduce numbers, to think creatively about how we're providing instruction. If we want tangible reductions in numbers with additional staff, I can bring back options for that.
I would just think that whenever you felt it was appropriate to update us and, let us know this is how things are going. And, clearly for, concerns that parents, from a few meetings ago, and, the board is always, kind of keeping this as the back of our minds. Sure. I think we clearly want to be more supportive and involve your expertise here. We certainly trust your distributing leadership and, talking to your sorry.
Well, I really like what Michelle said about knowing, right? So let's get in front of Mr. Zerwanka and Radke and Picos and say, okay, here's what we think we're doing.
Yeah.
Here's how I think this looks in the classroom. Is this enough? Is this not enough? And then if we need to make additional changes. But if I'm hearing something else, tell me, because I feel like there's an answer out here. I'm just not hearing it.
I think,
Yeah, I think that's all, that's
Want to make sure
what
they're
they're
okay.
Yeah.
saying, I think.
So we can bring that to our next meeting.
Yeah.
We'll check in with everyone that is either high or on the border, find out where they're at, make sure that the support that we're providing is enough. If it's not, we'll come back at our next board meeting with a financial trust. And that could be any number of things. It could be a paraprofessional, like we said. It could be looking to split a class. It could be, I'm not sure.
So, Dana, and I don't want to talk about it now,
Yeah.
but if either you or probably more like Fran can just, someone explain this to me, I don't remember the explanation as to why Western doesn't get the Title I.
The free and reduced numbers. They're 26% free and reduced,
That's pretty certain.
40.
So
Part-
it's based on the kids that are in the school, the families that are in the school. that
Yeah,
way.
specifically there. So in order, it would be Western Avenue at 26%, Heather Hill at 44, Lost Hills at 52, Sweden Hills at 71, and Cole Parker up there at 42.
Is there any more conversation on the staffing? I think this is obviously something that will continue because one is discussion, so there's nothing for us to vote on. Two, I would also want the full board to be here to engage in this conversation. But again, I mean, I appreciate that we start having this sooner rather than later. I think what would be helpful is when we continue to have this conversation, we do as a board need to make decisions. And I'm not leaning one way or the other, but we do need to make decisions about, is there a tipping point? Is there a point at which we want to say, if we get to this number, then that warrants X? Right.
And a rationale for why.
Correct, right. I mean, also recognizing there'll still be some degree of this that we're just talking about every single year, but the decisions have to be flexible or allow some flexibility so that we can go back if we hear from our building leaders and teachers that more support is needed. We need to have a decision that's flexible enough that allows us to go in and provide that support. So I mean, that's our job. Okay, so are we having a tax levy conversation?
Well, I think you need to, because I think all of these conversations are tied together. And
yeah,
we're starting early, which is the best part. Yeah, we are. We're sort of listening. We would have perspectives. But just some general information just to share, and we'll hand it over to Fran, but we're anticipating a 2.1%, or I should say the consumer price index of 2.1% will be used on the levy, which translates into an additional $470,000 in additional tax dollars. We already know our costs are increasing based on the collective bargaining agreement, somewhere to the tune of $520,000. Previous conversation on staffing, looking at next year, had an additional $420,000. So regardless, we may be looking at areas to make sure we're doing as efficient as possible. But the conversation about the levy is important to have now so that everyone understands how the expenditures and the revenues fit together. Questions for Fran?
Fran, I know I ask you this every 2 weeks, but can you just remind me again what our timeline is for this?
Based on your feedback now, I will be bringing you tentative levy at the October 29th committee of the whole. At this point, based on the conversation you just had, I plan on bringing you a CPI levy. It's your tentative levy for you to chew on. We will then actually put what we're doing in the newspaper, and you'll vote on it the first board meeting of December 10th, I think.
So it'll go in the newspaper?
It'll go in the newspaper in no less than no more than 14 days prior to that meeting.
Okay. So you'll bring to the board the levy, assuming that's the direction, for the next meeting in 2 weeks, and then that gives us...
No, we want it October 29th.
I'm sorry, October 29th.
Is when you'll see the levy.
So that gives us 2 or 3 more meetings to
Two meetings
discuss.
if you want to make any changes to that tentative one.
Thoughts, questions?
You know, there's something that I really wish, I'm not sure if the administration can get it for us. It's probably slightly a little bit outdated because there have been some changes to state aid, but it's called Taking the Mystery Out of Illinois School Finance. It is, to me, it breaks everything down. Fran does a very good job of doing that, but this book is something I can't take Fran home. I can't take her and keep, because I mean, it's a lot of information. And even being here almost 4 years, there's still more and more questions. But again, it's about an 80-page book. It was written by actually a gentleman who was a superintendent at one point. But it talks about even about bonds. It talks about the whole piece and how this all maps together. And even where, before the wards, it used to be wards, and districts were broken down, how those laws came. It talks about detail, it talks about a lot of good information that I think would be great for board members for years to come to take a look at, because the core pieces are there. You have to continually look at this. I know that I asked for these conversations, and I asked for this conversation to come, because in my mind, you know, not just as a board member, but as a stakeholder, but having fiscal responsibility, I know that we have a lot of things that with the pensions, that's gonna come down, that's gonna, you know, hit the district itself, each district itself. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. My whole thing about this levy, I don't know if we could levy less, is that we have money, and I have said in three different things, not just our district, but in 802, I was sitting over at the school board meeting over at HF the other day. You know, the piece that people, when the administrators are talking about it, that, you know, you can tell by the board members when they're sitting, even me as city board members, that I think that is forgotten, is the piece of what we have in reserve. And even though that's for a rainy day and for, you know, I just want to know, why are we continuing to levy when we have money in reserve? I know that we have a lot of unknown things, even if something comes up with personnel and staffing. I know it can hit the budget hard. I know we're in a good position. We're solvent. We're financially solvent. We're not a poor district, you know, and I have a really big issue. And even though this isn't our district, here's just something. We have a high school district. I'll give you a perfect example. Sitting on $60 million in reserves. The girls' tennis team don't even have any. They want parents to come up with an additional $100, $150 In my mind, when you're sitting on that kind of money and you're sitting on reserve, kids shouldn't go without what they need. You shouldn't have parents that have to keep opening up their checkbooks. When we did it to pay taxes, property taxes, when we did that all this first, and then we paid registration fees and then sport fees and all that other stuff. And coming over to here, when I look at other districts, we're leaps miles and leaps ahead, even in technology, even the way we electronic. A lot of people have board, got paper, they're cutting down trees. There's a lot of different things we're miles and leaps ahead that I can appreciate about this district. But what I just cannot wrap my hands around is, maybe it's just me personally, is someone to tell me when we're sitting on, what, $29, $30, $32 million, why we have to continue to have these discussions for more? Why do we need to keep levying out more and more and more and more? And that's the issue that I have.
The basic thing would be, because we aren't a revenue generating business, so unfortunately we get our money from tax. Right. So it's a systemic problem that starts before here. So, and one of the, I won't steal whoever's thunder it is about reducing the fund balance, but so there are things that, as opposed to taking on debt to pay for certain things, we are, you know, there's things that we can take from reserve. But because we are not a revenue generating business, then this is where we lead to, if you don't get it now, then you lose it. And then when those unforeseen things come up that you talked about, then what do we do? So then what do? We have to get rid of our wonderful teachers. We have to start doing some things that we aren't that district that we once were. And then we can't recoup that. We can't go back and get that back because then we don't have a means to do that because we're not a corporation. And so I agree. As one of the families, I pay a lot in taxes. And I moved in, right, I moved in paying a lot in taxes. So I get it. But by the same token, it is the system that we have right now. And it's not an excuse of like, oh, we just have to, get over it. But that is,
But are we doing it out of tradition? Or do we have a purpose? It's like when you save money, when I save money, I'm earmarking money right now because I'm looking at retirement. You know what I'm saying? If I'm sitting on, and that is a whole other thing, because that's personal. But when you're sitting on money that has not been spent, and you're gonna continue to add money
but then think
to
of it
that.
like this. If we didn't have the money in reserves to go and hit it up for construction costs and things like that, if we had the same conversation 5 years prior, the reserves is too high, we need to bring it down. Then we get to the point that we're at now, the money's not in reserves. So now we have to take out debt. And that gives us a whole different dynamic that we're dealing with. So a reserve, we think in terms, it's literally that, it's a reserve. So unfortunately, we don't quite know when we're gonna need it, but we wouldn't have the ability to fund any of our projects because we wouldn't have had a reserve. If we had the same conversation 5 years prior.
I get that piece. And when I moved here, I thought of taxes as tuition for my kids. That's what I thought of it as. But when you continue, again, to levy and continue levy, maybe years ago, before even I came, maybe we should have been exercising the tradition of doing that. But it's a conversation because I still say, even though people are moving in, we have people who are moving in, we have people who are losing their homes and continuing to add to that piece. And I know that's a bigger and a deeper problem, but when we continue to add and add, and we really don't need, and we're not showing where we're going to utilize what we already have.
But I don't know that I agree with that. I think that's why it was important to have this guided conversation. That additional $420,000 is almost your levy, right? The additional extension,
Well,
right?
that's almost your levy, but that's not talking about the money that we already have in reserve,
But
that we're not utilizing.
but this board also doesn't want to run a deficit. So if,
We're far from a deficit.
no, I don't
So how
agree.
much money do we have in reserve?
But that's not,
No, I'm asking the question for a reason. How much money do we have in reserve?
Operating reserves right now, you're looking at about 26.9.
And that takes into account the last construction.
That's on hand June 30, 2018. So it's not completely finished. We haven't finished paying off.
so if we go out and we buy a cafeteria at $3 million, that money comes out of that fund balance, it's gone, okay. If we buy 6 more teachers and we add on the additional collective bargaining agreement raises, we've just added $920,000, 940, right? So that number is a growing, living, compounding issue. So that's part of the challenge here. So yeah, we can absolutely bite into that. The way that we bite into it in this field is personnel, because that's our largest expenditure. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we were talking about the potential staff numbers for next year tonight. So as we know, as we're going into this decision, we can make this decision and it will have an effect either way. Could be anticipated staffing, it could be how we decide to respond to that class gets to 26, or maybe we bust them as opposed to adding a paraprofessional in the classroom. So all the pieces just work together. You're absolutely asking the right questions to help us get to a clearer place.
What the budget does, we do budget for the rate. We do budget for that. When we're looking at our budget.
Here's the thing,
you need to be careful about using your reserve balances to fund ongoing operations. That's the danger piece. So what you want to do is use your fund balances to fund one-time expenditures, your capital projects, things that you don't necessarily absolutely have to do. Because if you start funding your ongoing operations, your salaries and benefits, your actual year in, year out expenses with your fund balances, what do you do when your fund balances are done? Now you can't support all the day in and day out operations without making what could potentially be dramatic cuts. So you want to almost look at it as two separate things. What are the things that we absolutely positively have to fund day in and day out? Salaries, benefits, this level of staffing, etc. And what are the other things that we want to do around here, but they're not recurring every year expenses? Those things, use your fund balances for. Don't bond when you don't have to and add on to that levy for debt. But use your fund balances for these construction projects that aren't going to be repetitive in nature. If you build a cafeteria, you're only going to build it once. But if you continue to use your fund balances to fund an additional 5 teachers, and what if you only have enough funds in the bank to last for 5 years for those 5 teachers? At the end of those 5 years, are you ready to cut them? You need to be able to support the level of expenditures that you want to spend on a regular basis to support your 20 students or your 25 students, whatever your number is, with the money that you have coming in, not with your reserve balances, because eventually they will run dry and then you've got an operating problem. And that's the nuance of this.
So I think last year, we started having conversations where we sort of left it that we wanted to pick up this year was, where is our comfort level as a board in terms of how low are we willing to, what percentage, however we want to look at it, but where's our comfort level with our reserve? And then if our comfort level allowed us to actually spend down our balance, then what would be those one-time only type activities that we would support to dip into that, right? So whether it's, knocking down that lunchroom wall at Parker, which I'm pretty sure we would all volunteer to do that for free. Or, are there other things that we would want to use it for? I have absolutely no idea right now what those things are. Right, STEM programs, scholarships for teachers, whatever, but, so it's kind of two conversations. One, to levy or not? And then two, are we comfortable with reducing our fund balance? And if so, can we have a conversation based on the district's recommendations on what we should be using to support those funds?
If I could just get real quick, one way to maybe think about this is, let's say we fast forward, we agreed, yes, we're going to spend $6 million on, knocking down that wall. It's work. Or we are building some STEAM labs. We decided it's a great idea, it's working great. If we just pretend that money is not there, and how would we then have that conversation about the levy? Because if we're thinking of that money as, we shouldn't be asking for money that we don't need because it's there. Well, what if we just pretended it wasn't there? Because at some point, it seems likely from conversations that, or there's a very good chance it won't be there in the future, because we'll spend it on things that are meaningful, theoretically. And, then we will have to look at, okay, now we have our fund balance that is our comfort zone, and now we really have to look at the levy for its purpose, meaning that the levy's purpose is to keep up with the cost of the lights going on here, that we are paying teachers, that, next year we have, we're looking at, 520 in teacher salary increases over this year, and that, as I understand it, and that there's, this other, 420 that we talked about tonight, possibly, and so when we have that budget in mind, all of our costs, the CPI, all of our costs are going to go up, 2.1%, at the rate we are now. So it's not that we're asking for, that the economy is going to stay relative to the way it is in 2018, because the economy will be relative unto itself in 2019 by 2.1%. So it's the, that's the reason why back in the colonial days, houses cost $5, whereas now they're $500,000. The cost goes up relative to the economy, and that's really what the CPI is. If you don't keep up with that, then what happens is you're going to get behind that, and your operating costs are going to keep increasing, and our what we haven't levied won't be matching the rate of increase relative to the economy. Does that make sense? So I think that one way to think about it is, if we're thinking of the fund balance, that we're going to have a separate conversation about perhaps spending down, we need to think of it as that money isn't there. Because moving forward, this year, next year, or after that, we need to be aware of that CPI. We need to be aware of what the levy is, and we need to be aware their expenses are going to keep, we're not going to get a break from the universe. In terms of it's not going to go the other way. There's no negative in CPI, just based on the numbers.
So to Steve's point, and not to jump to the other report, but this is probably a good way to look at least the way that I'm hearing from Merle. So we have 26.9 million. If the board accepted our recommendation on that appropriate percentage to keep in the bank, having operating cash on hand, if the pension cost shift does come on down the pipeline, having at least 2 years in the bank so that we could make it through without having to find $1.3 million in cuts, right? So that keeps us at about $18.1 million of cash reserves, keeps us in a very good footing. We could weather a lot of storms. The facilities survey that we did just came up with $9.8 million worth of work. That would leave us with 8.8. So if we just did all of the uncool work, sprinklers, windows, all of those things, all of our fund balance is now gone by another $1 billion, and the money that we did have, just saying if we use those ratios, that's money that we have said we cannot go below because this is money for the district, rainy day, or pension cost shift. Now you can run into issues of true deficits, and I think that's what we're trying to avoid. So if we could spend down with one-time purchases, perfect. All of these large personnel issues, staffing, all of those things, would really drive the additional budget, but that's, as those costs increase, the budget has to increase as well. So I have found that text, but I can't find the newest version. But I will share the 5th edition digitally. I'll share it with the board tonight. Actually, we put it on the website. Do you think?
That would be great.
Okay.
Right. Great.
Well, let me make sure that it's for use at this point. Right?
Yeah, it's outdated because the state aid is gone.
That's
I'm
right.
sure he's gonna be ready.
But the core parts of it is what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Understanding the whole piece, I think.
We'll share it.
So what do you need from us tonight?
I need the head nod to local CPI levy, and if not, I'll do what you want, staff.
Do we feel comfortable doing a head nod with our other 2 board members present?
I think that we need to always look in terms of, if somebody wants to, look at other numbers, fine. But I think we always have to look for, who are experts that we've hired suggest and make a proposal, or put in front of us. And I think that, certainly, and not to in any way diminish anyone's concern, but I would suggest that, we have a CBO for a reason, and I think that we should move forward with, at least see the proposal. And if at some point somebody would like to say, well, what would it look like in another way? And then we can have that conversation, but I think we have to see, the plan to put a proposal. So,
I don't see anybody now. I'm sorry.
Could we see it with and without the numbers?
With or without the 2.1%?
Yeah, do the analysis. So flat versus 2.1.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing. I think my question was just, do we feel comfortable doing the head nod without John and Cameron being here?
Yeah.
That was my question.
All right, so we'll bring it back to 2.1, we'll bring it back to 1. Do you want to see that fund balance reduction?
Fund balance reduction.
We're kind of already on there. If there are any, we'll definitely want to talk about this later. Essentially, just food for thought, and, Fred and I have talked about this, but I really have to give her a lot of credit for thinking so critically about this issue. I think, Michelle, we've talked about the fund balance thing for that whole time here, because it's an issue. This initial recommendation would have us looking to keep $18.1 million in cash reserves. Now, that is not the hard number. The hard number would be the 180 days cash on hand plus the 2 years pension caution. So as those shifted, that number can go up and down.
Wasn't that in the budget?
What? The pension caution? No.
I could have sworn we talked about it somewhere.
We talked about it,
Yeah, we
we
talked
continue to keep an eye on it, but since it hasn't happened, it's not in the budget.
Right, and that's why the 2 years would help, because then we would essentially, we would have 3 years to figure out how to cut $1.3 million, because that's what essentially we would have to do as soon as this cost shift comes. Otherwise, we would end up spending down our fund balance to the point of oblivion, and then we'd be in big trouble. So just based on this initial document, of course, we're going to come back and talk about it. Are we looking in the right direction?
Oh, I think this is great. That's very smart. I'm upset I didn't think of it.
There's still time.
Okay.
Sure. It's a group project, so just change 1 or 2 things. If you have thoughts or questions, send them to me, send them directly to Fran, whichever is easiest for you. We want to make sure that we have a plan, not only to maintain a fund balance, but also to move forward. And this is really that first step. So, okay, if we can get to the point where we're identifying the difference between our current fund balance and the future fund balance that we're okay with, then really the next step is, how do we want to get there? Which projects do we want to take on? Knocking on the wall at Parker, all of these other pieces. How do we want to move forward, being good stewards of the finances, but in a way that's smart, that is not recurring, so it doesn't lead to fund balance moving forward.
And also in a way where the community actually can see the value in the decision, right? I mean, so for many people who have been contributing to our very healthy fund balance for many, many years, no longer have kids in the district, have moved on. I mean, but I think that if we could think about this in terms of taking on projects that add value and that have a direct line to student learning, to teacher development, to continued improvement with culture and climate, all those things, I think the community would absolutely support, us continuing to go down this path.
And I think to that end, I think we should advertise these things. We should not be doing these quietly and silently.
Oh, sure.
I think Mayor Daley's, when he was, many years ago, when he was
Don't use it.
Well, hold on. This is a great example. Hold on. I remember it was on NPR, so you know, it's good. Got it. So he said his father, when he took office, he asked his father for advice, and he said, make sure you make people put money on the street, because you want the people to see that you're spending money. And there's a cynical way to look at that, obviously, but I think that it's important for people to have a feeling, to your point, that this is we are spending this, and this is the value that you're getting, and it's
an investment.
Yeah, it's an investment. This is what you have invested in years ago, specifically to add value to your community, and that's when you're as a taxpayer here, part of the my parents pay taxes, and they the understanding is that you're always adding to the community through the school, which is such an important part of the community, and adds value to it.
Okay. Any other comments on fund balance? Are there any comments on the August financial statement? Oh, do I skip construction? I'm sorry. Construction.
We're still not at substantial completion. We are getting closer. We're supposed to be doing temperature control training and turning that over Wednesday, but we continue to have issues with temperature control. So, we're just kind of taking this week by week. We're close, a lot closer than we've been, but there's still some things that aren't quite right. They did fire up the boilers last Thursday, was it, Scott?
Wednesday.
At Heather, so we at least know they're working. But nothing's been turned over to the district control yet at either Parker or Heather. So they maintain their keys control until they turn those over. We will not mark it as substantial completion. They are arguing with us that it is substantially completed. We have Jeff Custer on that. So that's kind of where we stand. I mean, everything is functioning in the building, not the way we want it to be, but we're getting closer.
Any questions? Thank you. Architect RFQ process. Oh, I'm sorry. Clearly, now. I moved we in. Okay, I'm sorry. On his financial statement. Questions? See, I already knew that.
We could have anticipated it.
Architect RFQ process.
One of the directions that I certainly agree with, and we've had a lot of conversations about at the board level, is not randomly, that's the wrong word, systematically, which is the polar opposite, taking a look at our contracted services, vendor relationships that we've had for years, you name it, opportunities for us to ensure that we're getting the best prices, that an industry does not pass us by, that we can seek and get feedback from new players in the field. It's an opportunity for us to go out and look at the qualifications of additional and other architects. We've had 2 summers worth of work that have been challenging. I think Green and Associates has worked hard for the board. I think we also want to see what else is out there, especially as we're moving into our next step. Could be a lot of work, depending on, again, decisions that the board makes about fund balance. And we want to have a strong relationship with our architectural firm moving forward so that we can develop a common vision and then bring that to fruition effectively.
Comments? Questions? Yeah. So now, okay, I need a motion, please,